software, but I need them today. Okay, can you hear me? Little one?
No.
Really? You should be hearing me.
Now I can.
Hearing me. There we go.
Okay, now I can.
Hearing me. Wow, time delay. Okay. Looks like we're rocking. I'm gonna have to wear my glasses. These are just cheap ass reading glasses. But if I don't wear them tonight, I'm not gonna be able to see anything. My eyes are so variable. Hello, 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 hello. Hi, Chris. How's it going? Oh. Hello. What? Call you do it? Hello, Aries. Yeah, we're doing okay.
Hi, Aries.
Shoulder sore. Not sure why. Probably laid on it wrong or something. And then it just keeps getting kind of aggravated, which is really unfortunate as. Let's see, can you read that? Anyhow, it's Christmas tree time. And tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, be slinging Christmas trees. So we will see what happens.
What are you kicking, Chris? Chris says he's kicking. What's he kicking?
I think that's mostly kicking back, man.
Yeah.
It's awful hard
I
to kick back
something
because you have to be pretty flexible to kick your own back, you know. Ouch. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Let's see. Okay, get a pen too. There's a pen. Sweet. Yeah, I got that done. And I got that done. The list. Done. Hi, Rick. Hello for San Antonio. Okay. Hi, Jimmy. Well, it's now 6 o'clock. Howdy, folks. I'm Keith Bowen. This is Hard Rock University live from the Adobe Hovel. And this is, 11/29/2020. And I'm wearing my glasses because I have vision that changes. Depending a lot on my hydration, that's one thing I can tell. Hi, Rick. And right now, I can't see crap without these glasses, at least up close. So anyhow, news of the week. First of all, the Minor Bago is rolling again. Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it enormously. And as I say, we got it running. Seems to be doing fine. No, Chris. No, I have not. But anyhow, let's say the Bago's up and running. And Jim was very helpful on that. And I want to thank him very much. Seems to be running fine. So got that done. And let's see. Yes, start Christmas trees tomorrow. And that's going to bring up a problem of how do I live stream when I'm working 7 days a week from like 10 in the morning until 9, 10 at night. So I'm not sure how much live streaming I'll be able to get done between now and Christmas. Just be aware. May not be any for all I know. We'll see what we can do, but you know, it's going to be a busy 3 weeks. So, let's see. Yeah, it stops just fine. Bago seems to be working just fine, and the temperature seems to be running normal. We drove down to Green Valley today at freeway speeds to make sure, because what it was doing, last spring was you get on the freeway, you start rolling, and the temperature would go up higher than it used to for no apparent reason. So anyhow, that doesn't seem to be the problem. But right now it's kind of cool outside, so good Lord, it shouldn't get any increased temperatures. Fluid separation. Which particular kind of fluid separation, Rick? I'm sorry. It's been busy. Another note, most of you probably know YouTube has decided unilaterally that they can now monetize any content they feel like, anytime they feel like. So if anyone sees any commercials on my videos, could you please let me know? I'm not monetizing. I don't like being interrupted by videos and stuff. And unless I really had to, I don't see any reason to monetize. So if you see commercials, let me know, because they're putting commercials. I got to ask them and say, hey, where's my cut, damn it? But there's not much I can do about it. Yep. Ooh, Adam's baking cookies. Too bad I'm not at Adam's house. Okay, another thing is, too, I'm not sure how well YouTube is going to survive the coming next year or so, or this or that. Whether I not want to continue staying on it primarily or not, I'm thinking of firing up something else also. Not abandoning YouTube, but, opening up other options. So if you all have suggestions of what other platforms would be, if you could just put a comment on one of my videos somewhere and make it fairly detailed, I will get that and tell me, what and why, or you can email me if you have my email address, which, as everyone knows, is hardrocku@outlook.com. So, as I say, if anyone has some particular suggestions for a particular reason, we know a lot of options. We just don't know if there's any we should go to or not. Yeah, I have no idea what the deal is, Chris, but I think it's pretty rude to monetize your content without your permission. Hello, Lucas. Let's see. Oh dear. Dan Hurd new video. Okay. Now Dan Hurd had a new video out today. They're at their Ocean Picture Stone Quarry, which apparently is it's a blue quartz layered inside of others. So it's very pretty stuff. And being quartz, it should polish very well. But because they're mining stone for cutting and polishing and such, they don't want to demolish it. So they're using feathers and wedges. He was trying a hydraulic splitter and a few other little things. So that was kind of an interesting video today from Dan Hurd, especially like for DD with his rose quartz stuff. Okay, thank you, Chris. That would be cool. And to the gentleman who sent me the mine plan, let's see. I'm going to try something here. Little one, I'm going to need you to monitor the stream for just a second when you get a chance. And I'm going to try. I wanted to print it off, but I forgot to print it off. Can you print from your computer to that printer?
Not that I know of. I don't think we even have ink in this printer right now.
Tommy, do we have ink in the printer?
No, you can't find ink at the stores.
No printer at all. Okay. So we'll try and see what we can do. By the way, do you have access to my Hard Rock U account, little one?
I can get into your Hard Rock U account.
Okay. So, can you call up an email and stuff?
I should be able to.
Okay. Later on, we'll see.
More things you want to.
Yeah. Because a gentleman sent me some diagrams of a mine from an old geologic report in one of my analysis. And I was going to print them off and then hold them up and this, but that's not going to work without ink in the printer.
Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Adam.
G. Wolfman. Yeah, it was. The picture stone looks very pretty. As I say, what they were trying to do was split it, crack it, pull it out with minimum fracturing, which for certain applications is interesting. I've never seen a video on that, so that was very interesting.
Yeah. When it comes to streaming while we're at the tree lot, the only appliances I have handy are an Amazon Kindle Fire that I have to figure out how to run off the hotspot on my smartphone and my smartphone. And Bear is going to be working anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough thing unless it's very slow at the lot there at that particular time. There may be certain times a day where it'll be fairly predictably slow. I might be able to set something up. We'll see what we can do.
Adam, if it's not made by hand, it's not a real cookie anyway.
Yeah, well, I've never been opal mining either, but I know, again, it's something you have to be pretty careful with so you don't lose some really valuable material. Well,
Hi, Jake.
Adam, I've been making cookies by hand since I was 6. I've been making bread by hand, leavened bread, since I was 6. My mom was very serious about teaching her sons to be self-sufficient. Hi, Jake. How's it going? Yeah, that was it was funny when you said, "Oh, Ryan's got a mine." I thought, "Oh, wrong Ryan." Oh. So anyhow, let's see. This week I had actually a number of interesting things happen, and I made 3 videos, but I've only posted 2 so far. Number 1 was, of course, the fool's gold from bullet casings, which was hilarious. Oh, that was so funny when I dropped those casings in that impact mill. The audio track doesn't do justice to the viciousness of the grinding noise that came from that impact mill. That's why I wasn't paralyzed from fear. I was paralyzed from hilarity. That and kind of hunched down because there was little pieces of brass just raining down on me. That was hilarious. And then I also went out to Ryan's mine, and that was interesting. The panning, I've already got back. We've sent off, I think, virtually all of those samples. There was one where we composited 3, but we've sent all those off for assay, which I should have next week, and maybe I'll make a short video with reference to that to see how it correlates with the panning results. The first place you saw me was the shaft whose dump they've been hauling me, and which has been running, 1/3 of an ounce to 2/3 of an ounce to the ton. So it was, and that, it was panning just fine. But that stuff on surface there wasn't doing very well at all. And short of there being some kind of systematic interference with the panning technique, it leads me to believe that the surface is depleted and it's enriched at depth. That would also account for why with veins they never do declines or like that. They just went down as fast as they could along the vein, which in these cases it was pretty much a vertical shaft. Although the second place you saw me where I was hanging in the shaft, you didn't have to go down too deep to start getting something. I mean, they were stoping 15 feet below surface to the top of the stope. So apparently you didn't have to go too deep in places to get to good stuff. And okay, thank you, Chris. That'd be interesting to see what you come up with there. The there was a decline that you didn't see in the video. Didn't take the camera up there. It was toward the end of the day, and that had some decent pan results too, at least as compared with everything else. Nothing looked really good in the pan, but it was interesting because the gold wasn't exactly where you'd expect it to be, which again is to be expected. Nature loves to throw you curveballs, so curveball city. And the reason you didn't see much surface photography from there is that Ryan wants to keep things a bit confidential, so he doesn't want the stuff that people could drive on. Oh, I know where that is, sort of thing. Okay, so that was deliberate on my part. There's a reason there were no panoramic shots or surface shots or things like that. And hey, Jason from Flower Gold Wizards, how's it going? And say hi to Mrs. Wizard, and I'm glad she really liked the that silver rock. That's some weird looking stuff, but it's kind of cool. And anyhow, so did that, and then on Wednesday, a gentleman came by. He's got a new magnetic separator he's working on, and I was favorably impressed. He's kind of prototyping and stuff, and the question in his mind, he's not very knowledgeable about gold mining itself. He works in kind of industrial design, and kind of got into the magnetic separation for gold, just kind of as a side interest, and as such, not very knowledgeable about gold mining, doesn't have a lot of contacts or anything, and he happened to be in the area and wanted to see how the separator worked on microfine gold. And I thought it would be an interesting experiment, and lo and behold, it actually worked pretty darn well.
You got a couple of comments there. Chris wants to know if you got a chance to drop acid on that sample, and was the
No,
grade
I
in the
didn't.
black slate contact?
How did you get into mining and the like, and would you recommend to? Okay, I got into mining because I needed money. I had a girlfriend that got pregnant, then I married her, and I was making minimum wage, and it wasn't paying the bills. So my mom knew someone. She was a teacher, another teacher. Her son worked at a uranium mine up in Gallup, New Mexico. Said that they were hiring on a regular basis, and so I drove up there and camped out until I got a job. That's how I got in mining. Then after about a year and a half, they had a tailings accident and kind of shut the mine down, laid off a bunch of people. And so I came back to Yuma at the time, where I was living. And they were opening up the Chemical Picacho mine. Actually, my stepfather saw an ad in the paper. It says rock driller loader operator wanted. So I applied for that and got the job there. And so I worked in open pit heap leaching for 10 years due to that.
Getting into loading is really good.
And no, I have not done the acid test, but during one of my breaks, if you remind me, I can zip on outside, get a sample, and we can do an acid test right away. Because I've got, nitric acid, plenty of that, and it'll take me just a couple minutes to find that bucket. But, it's in a stack of 12 buckets, and it won't be hard to find the one. And so if you remind me later, Chris, I'll check that out. In case you're wondering, folks, when I was underground at Ryan's mine in that tunnel, and there was those stripes of quartz, non-quartz, quartz, non-quartz, it's highly plausible that the non-quartz is calcite, limestone or mobilized limestone from being dissolved and reprecipitated, which is very easy to determine by simply putting a little acid on it. It just fizzes like, the Dickens. So we'll see. See if it's shedding cut. Well, I was planning on using nitric acid. Not sure how well that'll work with an iron nail. Sulfuric acid, that'll plate. I don't know. Hey, Chris, does it work well with nitric too, or does nitric just dissolve everything? If you dissolve copper in sulfuric acid and then put iron in the solution, the iron will dissolve and precipitate the copper. That's an old way they used to get copper from acid mine drainage and such. And actually, I saw that in use back in the 90s, the 1990s, in the Phelps Dodge property near Bisbee. They were leaching some stuff, and they were using cementation on iron. Okay. I don't know, Chris. We can give it a shot. But that'll be that's an interesting thing I can try out. Too bad I'm not set up for it right now, but we can certainly do that. And so we can have Eva take over for a couple minutes while I go frolic out back and get that. Oh, my eyes are starting to work better now. Yeah, I'm out of HCl. The jugs don't handle sunlight too well, so it has a limited lifetime in my backyard. The nitric acid is in a glass jug, so I'm not terribly concerned about leaving it in the shed. But nitric acid, in those cheap jugs they make, I'd be worried about that in my shed. So we shall see what we shall see.
I think you mean hydrochloric acid.
Yeah.
You said nitric.
No, nitric is what I have.
Yeah, but when you said you'd be worried about leaving it in your shed,
Yes,
you said the cheap jugs they put nitric in.
Well, she's
I'm
probably
sure
correct.
I understand you.
Nitric, then hydrochloric. Well, I suppose if you put the hydrochloric on there, that would precipitate the silver as silver chloride, correct, Chris? You could probably use salt, couldn't you? That would, do the job.
Oh, good grief.
What?
Biden has tweeted
Oh, my God.
after leaving the clinic.
Questions for you. Have you had dealings with claim jumpers? I haven't personally had to deal with them.
You had that sort of incident where the guy was claiming it was his
I
claim.
had a situation where the guy was claiming I was on his claim, but I had the maps with me. I kind of suspected this might happen. He bought some claims from a friend of mine that were adjacent to where I was at, and thinking of why would he buy those, my thought was he bought them to get the thing I was mining. And so when I went out there, I was prepared to show him the maps and the claim documents and this, that, and the other. And while he was a little bit upset at first, he quickly calmed down because, yeah, I staked these claims. I know which is which. Trust me. There's the line of stakes right there. I put them in. I know where I'm at. So as a general rule, if it's your claim and somebody else is on it, and they're not taking a bunch of stuff right away, right quick, again, you have to evaluate risk-reward ratio and stuff. You can either talk to them politely and say, hey, excuse me, you're on my claim. May I ask what you're doing? If you see them taking stuff, I just get a license plate and get the hell out of there. Okay? Call the sheriff from a safer area. In many cases, there's only one road out of, where the claim is, and keep track of them from a distance. Call in authorities and say somebody's stealing stuff from my claim. If the rock's not that valuable and they're just taking rock, depending upon the situation, you may call in, the authorities to go with you while you tell these people it's your claim. Make sure you have the paperwork if you're going to do that, because the deputies are not going to arrest anybody in general in a case like that. They might, basically take a report to verify when you go and file a complaint that, yes, we saw these people at that time and this is what was happening. But be very careful because people do weird things, and they can't steal anything valuable enough to be worth your life. So risk is the most important thing in a case like that. We had a case a while back where somebody had some equipment stolen from their mine, where somebody cut the lock on the door and stole stuff that was in the mine and everything. And a good idea there, if you have limited access, is to set up trail cams to catch license plates. Now, my personal preference is, if you can, set up 2 trail cams, one close to the mine in a spot that's not necessarily that difficult to find, and one farther away. If there's only one access road, which in this case, it was single access for over a mile to get into his mine. So anywhere along that 1 mile stretch, you could put in another trail cam and catch descriptions and license plates. Assuming they'll find the first one and destroy it, and then miss the second one because they wouldn't think you were being that thorough. I know some people I know have put up trail cams on their claims for the same reason, and that does that include panning? Again, if there's some family out there doing a little recreational panning on your claim, you might just say, hey, this is my claim here. Who are you? And blah, blah, blah. And if they're apologetic and nice, you might give them permission. And yes, Chris, that's very, very true. Claim jumping is actually trying to steal your claim. Mineral theft is actually taking the minerals from your claim. Oh yeah, Chris is up. He's up in the hills between Sacramento and Reno, up in a place called Forest Hill. Jake.
And it's beautiful.
Jake lives in the Bay Area. My condolences. It used to be a nice place to live, but what the heck? Things change. So that's kind of it on the claim jumping sort of situation. Again, use discretion. Discretion is the better part of valor. Oh my God, did you see that just go by the screen? It's the topless bald Mexican. That's a subspecies back there that's kind of weird, and
Yeah, he's not quite as cute as the dude that was the houseboy in the bird cage. I will say that.
we're kind of rescue house here. You know how that goes.
Yeah, he showed up to squat while we were gone, and he hasn't left yet. This is normal around here.
That's Tom, Jake.
Yeah, that's Parrish.
Yeah, he's a roommate / employee / been around a long time friend.
Who needed a place to live, so he ended up here.
Oh, Chris, you can get yourself in trouble no matter how much you know about anything. You're just talented that way. But anyhow, so I hope that answered the question on the claim jumping, etc. And the research we've done seems to indicate that someone is allowed to go on your claims and put stakes, even if you don't give them permission. It doesn't mean those stakes mean anything. It just means that to avoid this sort of conflicts, because you can overstake a placer claim, you can overstake at load, and that's perfectly legit. So you could also have someone who has a claim that's been invalidated or something, and somebody wants to come out and overstake it. So the BLM basically says you can't stop people from staking on your claim. Now, then it's adjudicated as to whose stakes mean anything and how much are just so much firewood. But so apparently you can't, really use force or anything, keep them from physically emplacing a stake on your claim, even if it has no validity. Again, deputies do not like to get involved in legal disputes. They let the lawyers handle that. We got any other questions coming up here? Because I'd say I've had an interesting, busy week.
Yeah.
But that's only going to last so long.
Biden's got a boot.
Oh, yeah. I say, Chris, they can put the stakes in the ground. Then you go to court, and the court decides whose stakes are actually valid. There's also a procedure whereby you overstake the edge of a person's property to make sure that there's no unstaked ground there. I mean, let's suppose you had, Chris and I had adjoining claims. And to keep from encroaching on his claim, I put my stake 1 foot away from his stake and the other end the same way. Well, what that means is that 1 foot strip of ground between our claims is not staked, and somebody else can come in there and claim that ground. And now if we were to try and make a big pit there or whatever, that person would have to get involved in it. So going a little bit onto someone else's claim to place your stakes to avoid unclaimed, strips is not an unusual procedure. And that's why if there's overlap, there's no unstaked ground. Whoever's got primacy has the ground to their line, and then your stake goes up to their line once it's decided where the heck their line is. That may take surveyors and lawyers to ascertain. What was the biggest haul you have ever gotten, and did you keep any of the earnings? Okay. Let me see what else there. In terms of a haul, I was working at gold mines that made a lot of money every week. When I was at the Picacho mine, we were averaging 750 ounces a week was our target. It was 3,000 ounces a month was the target figure. And I particularly remember one time because when we were hauling gold to the refiners, it had to be 2 management people. I wasn't usually one of them because my job was to keep the pit running. And other people were easier to disappear for a day, so to speak. Also, as you may gather, I'm not the kind of guy that kind of fits in with uppity crowds and cliques and stuff like that. And so while I was respected and was able to work with everyone, I wasn't one of the gang in the management thing. But one time they were short of guys, so I rode shotgun, not armed, just, for security reasons, you want 2 people, to the refiner. And at that time, we had a little better than 40 pounds of gold with us. It was in 2 bars, and they were about that big and about that thick each. Gold is pretty darn heavy. And I do remember standing outside the gate waiting for them to open up, and it was getting heavier and heavier. It was in a box where it wasn't obvious what was in it, but I suppose if you see a couple guys standing in front of a gold refiner with a wooden box stretching the elbows, it kind of gives you a hint. But it was cool when we went in there, and they had a room about as big as our living room here, and we have a fairly large living room that had industrial shelves. It was just stacked with packages and drums and everything with gold and silver in them. It was hilarious. I don't know how many millions of dollars were there, but it was a crap load. And that was pretty awesome. Let's see what else we got. And did I keep any of the earnings? Well, I got paid, about 17, 18 bucks an hour. So that's not bad. In terms of actually mining stuff, when I went up there dredging that one summer in Idaho, I got about 2/3 of an ounce was my cut of the season's take, and so that would be total recovered 0.66 divided by 0.7. Now, let's see, 0.66 equals 0.3. Cross multiply. So 1 divided by 0.3 equals, okay, times 0.66. Yeah, a little better than 2 ounces was what we recovered all season there. I don't think we made a profit, but at least we made something. And it was really cheap living there, so not a problem. Let's see. There was one noise. Yeah, I'm not usually part of the establishment of anything. I don't typically fit in except with oddballs, which is why I fit in so well with this community. But yeah, I don't. Ordinary people are just very confusing to me. I don't understand their thought processes or lack thereof. But that's okay. I can live with that. Even I get along. That's all I really need. Let's see. Have I ever been out to Goldfield, Nevada? No, I have not. There's a lot of places I haven't been. I do like traveling, though. And usually, though, there is a place I'm traveling to instead of just traveling around a lot. I don't have a big pile of money I can live on, and therefore I have to focus my efforts where I can get compensated. And that typically means that whenever I'm traveling from point A to point B. Sometimes we'll have extra time in there and we will take our time getting there. We love to do that, but there's only so much we can afford to do. You take care, Jake. Eva enjoys talking with you. Good luck, young feller. And so that's, I think we're all caught up on this, that, and the other. I say I will post the video on the magnetic separator next week to kind of keep some kind of a stream of information going. And it worked quite well. When you watch the video, you'll see that the gold in the last part of the video seems to be less than the gold we started with. And there's a reason for that, because Geezerus Doofus, when he was emptying one of the receiving buckets, emptied it into the other receiving bucket when I was just decanting water. And you really shouldn't do that at a high velocity when the bucket contains gold that you're pouring into. And it washed about half of the gold out into the recirculation tub. So the actual recovery was even better because the gold from the magnetics was theoretically 100% there, but the gold from the non-magnetics was about half gone. So I would say that it recovered well over 95% of the gold into the non-magnetics with very, very little going into the magnetics. I was quite impressed with the device, especially in terms of it seems like a very elegant device. he uses a what do you call it? Hi, Robert. He uses what you might call a power module, which has the magnets and a motor, and he can use that on itself underneath the pan to remove the magnetics from your non-magnetics in a pan. He's got another stand he puts it in that is a dry magnetic separation, where you have a funnel that's dropping a stream of dry material past the magnetic field, and so it's sucking the magnetics out of this dry stream. And he also has the wet one that you'll see in the video I'll post next week. And he was out basically traveling over Thanksgiving and stuff, and he was here the day before Thanksgiving, and we didn't really get everything done that I wanted to get done. I hadn't had a chance to teach him how to pan microfine gold yet, and this and that. So we invited him to camp out in the backyard and have Thanksgiving dinner with us and such. And I gave me another day to gather information and try his thing and teach him stuff and show him things, because he was here when I crushed and split the samples for Ryan's mine and panned those down. So it worked out well for everybody. He had a nice Thanksgiving dinner. His dogs got to run around in the backyard, and I say we had a good time. So that worked out nice. Let's see. And oh man, that's not a bad idea, Chris. Chris suggests we collect some Christmas tree sap and try it on the bottom of a pan for gold. Not a bad idea.
Very good idea. We'll figure out how to do it.
I still got to try and get some lanolin too. I know you folks must be frustrated because I always say I need to do this, need to do that. But man, there's only so many hours in the day and so many dollars in the wallet. So I do try and do what I can, but it is of limited extent. Yeah, that might be a little trouble here right now. I'll have to get some warm water out of the house. Yeah, mining maps are a good idea on where claims are and such, but better information here. Let me get you a picture here. If you can get publications like this, let's see if we can get that. Yeah, there we go. My goodness, it's weird how that thing works. This is from Arizona, state of Arizona. There's various editions of this. The older ones might be better because they'll have more mines in them. But this is just a listing of different mines, different areas, you know. So it has a lot of information on specific districts and mines. Wow, that's pretty neat. The Oatman District. See now, this is a map of the Oatman District, and then it has information on the individual mines inside the publication, so you can see essentially geologic reports, production numbers, and things like that. It's a very abbreviated amount. I mean, a good mine, a big mine, would have no more than a page. Medium-sized mines would usually have like a paragraph, and small mines are lucky if they get a sentence, you know. But it gives you a lot of information, and I think that would be a better place than just looking at maps of old mining claims. Look for histories of mining districts and things like that. Yeah, that's a cat. That's Catzilla. Hey, that's not bad. I like that. That's Pixel, and he weighs about 20 pounds. And how do you get this particular one? Contact your local, by that I mean state, either geology department or Department of Mines and Mineral Resources, which was in Arizona. Arizona Bureau of Mines at the time that this was written, they called the Bureau of Mines. Now it's Mines and Mineral Resources. Most states have one. Geology is very, very important to development for a number of reasons. All states will have the equivalent of a geological survey or something to that effect. You can also go to a college or university, talk to the geology instructor. If it's a small community college, they may just have a geology instructor. If it's a university or whatever, they'll often have a geology department like U of A does. But if it's a liberal arts university, it may not. But you can ask them and find out what agency is involved in regulating mines. And in order to regulate them, you got to know where they are, what they're doing, and stuff like that. So if they're compiling that information, then you can access that information. In Montana, very little of it is on the internet. Apparently, in Arizona, almost all of it is on the internet. So it's one of those things that it can be highly variable as to how easy it is to access the information, but the people who will have it will be like the Geological Survey, Bureau of Mines and Mineral Resources, whatever. This is Lode Mines. They have a similar publication on placer mines in Arizona, and a lot of information. There's literally information on hundreds of mines there, just hundreds and hundreds of them. Does he walk through walls? Not to our knowledge. He's pretty much a home cat. Although I tell you this, he can't levitate either, or at least he never has when he's sitting on me. He might be able to increase gravity locally, but I'm not sure. He is a heavy cat.
He's a fat boy.
Yeah. National Mining Hall of Fame in Leadville, Colorado. Tons of good history. There you go. If you happen to be in the area, that would probably be a cool thing to go to. No, I do not have any experience with LiDAR. Is this essentially vegetation penetrating LiDAR? Are you able to map the ground surface, or are you basically mapping the top of the vegetation? If you are able to map the ground surface, then what you're really looking for is depressions, holes, or cavities of any sort with a pile next to them. Now, there's lots of natural holes and depressions in the rock. They, in general, will not have a pile of rock next to them. Almost all underground mines do, because you have to move waste rock to get to the ore. Rarely is your ore body so big that you can do nothing but tunnel in ore. But it's the combination of the two that you should be looking for. Yeah, Chris, that sounds like you. It depends on your instrument and whether it is multi-reflection or does it have spectrometer functionality. Yeah, mindat.org is pretty good too. I don't have a subscription to that. You can quite often get sufficient information. I seem a little washed out there. That looks a little better. You can often get sufficient information from just their standard notations or whatever, the page that shows that particular mine, to give you a lot of stuff, especially as they quite often will reference reports that you may be able to look up separately. If you're going to be doing a lot of research, that's probably a good thing to get a subscription to. Adam says the cookies are working. And Chris says you will certainly need RTK GPS capability on the drone. Well, I know what GPS stands for, but I'm return to known, maybe something like that. Basically, I presume that means that it comes back on its own before it runs out of battery power, which would be desirable. I'd hate to try and find a drone in the middle of some of the places I've been. Real-time kinematic. Oh, okay. It still would have a nice return function. I presume these drones have a function where it has some idea how far it has to fly back and how much battery that's going to use. And it hits, and it lets you know when it hits bingo charge. You know? Now, for those of you who don't know, bingo is a military term that means minimum fuel required to return to base. Or to a safe landing place. Once you hit bingo fuel, you either go home or crash or land someplace you're not supposed to. Corrects the atmospheric effects between the satellite. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was watching like a Discovery Channel program one time where an aircraft, a fighter in the Persian Gulf was coming back to the carrier, and they were getting close to bingo fuel, and they were trying to link up with a tanker, and that tanker ran out of fuel, so it had to leave, and they linked up with another tanker, and something happened there. I forget what it was. And basically what it was is they're like, well, a tanker's right here. Why go to the to our abort location? And then they had problems. They almost didn't make it. Bingo fuel, you know, to quote the thing, bingo fuel means bingo fuel, you know, because, yeah, if they hadn't managed to hook up to the last tanker, they would have been swimming and lost a very expensive airplane, which really annoys your boss. Yeah. I know of no association of uranium with gold. Rare earth, I don't know. But I do not think it would do you any good in gold. I think some of the rare earths are themselves radioactive and perhaps might even have particular emission spectra, so to speak, that are identifiable by instrument. You want to see the core of the Earth. That would be way cool, but it'd be really dark. Yeah, the conditions there are extraordinary. But it would be interesting to get an actual composition of the core of the Earth that's accurate. I don't know, you know, what it is. I mean, it's obviously got a lot of heavy elements. You know, iron is the primary one they assume, but also there may be a whole lot of gold, uranium, things like that. Radioactivity is what theoretically keeps it warm. All these radioactives go to the center of the Earth. When they decay, they generate energy, and it's a lot of rock to get to the surface to let that heat out. So that is the current theory on how the core of the Earth stays molten over long periods of time. All right. Okay. So sometimes radiation signatures can help show contact zones, which can be a useful information. Yeah, that's true. Of course, it might also, you know, be visually identifiable fairly easily, but not under soils. Yeah. Anyhow, why don't I see if my beautiful wife can take over for a little bit?
Let your beautiful wife go to the bathroom first.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and take care of necessary arrangements, and then I will go out and get the sample and a little acid.
Know what going to the bathroom means.
Well, yes, but I'm a gentleman, okay? Well, I pretend to be a gentleman. How's that? anyhow, as soon as she gets back, I'll go get that sample, Chris, and a little acid in a glass, and then we'll do the test. I'll see if I can grab a nail out there too. Shouldn't be too difficult. Not sure how much probably a fairly small amount of acid, then I can dilute it after putting in the rock, and we'll throw in the nail and see what happens. Watch for the no, she can take care of herself. Shirtless guy tries anything, she can deal with him. Well, Smoking Joe, I'm glad you got an interesting trip planned up in the spring. Is this hard rock or placer gold you're looking at?
Okay.
Yeah, the sample, the acid will be here just for a short period of time. Concentrated nitric acid also fumes pretty unpleasantly, especially when it's reacting with something. So here's Eva taking over.
Hey, everybody. Hello. So, you're not going to believe what Bear did to our turkey, okay? So we got this beautiful, gorgeous 25-pound turkey. And we got it unthawed, and Bear got up in the morning, and he carefully wrapped it, and it's double wrapped the pan with aluminum foil so it would steam, because we steam our turkeys. For some bizarre and unaccountable reason, he put it in the pan upside down, so it was laying on its breast. So several hours later, we go to open the pan, and he's like, the turkey's upside down, we got to turn it over. So we opened all the aluminum foil, and it had steamed faster than anticipated, and the legs and the wings were falling off. And it was most definitely already cooked, and it was like a half an hour early at least. So Bear gets the implements to try to turn it over so that we could at least attempt to brown it. This was not a successful operation. The turkey kind of spontaneously disassembled itself, which was fine. I mean, the turkey tasted amazing. It was moist. It was delicious. It was tender. It was melt in the mouth. Gorgeous turkey, other than the fact that it completely disintegrated and kind of turned into turkey stew. But oh well, it still turned out great. But for some reason, I seem to be the only person eating the major part of the leftovers, because tonight I walked off a big 8-ounce chunk of that turkey breast and dropped it in a bowl and ate it with ranch dressing for dinner. But I still have, Chris, actually not much landed on the floor. Some pieces landed on the countertop, and there was much swearing and profanity. But nothing actually landed on the floor. And Aries, neither one of these cats will eat turkey. I cannot figure it out, okay? They won't eat tuna. They will drink tuna water, but they will not eat tuna. They will not eat turkey. I'm trying to get them transitioned from dry food to wet food, because Pixel is getting older and I'm worried about his kidneys. And they don't like wet food either. So things are a little rough right now. And yeah, Chris, it was like the last flight of the turkey. As God is my witness, I really thought turkeys could fly. I don't think this one could have, because I'll tell you, this thing had the tiniest wings I have ever seen on a turkey. It was all breast and these little pathetic turkey legs and these little pathetic turkey wings. It was amazing. And yeah, profanity entered the turkey, and it entered the kitchen, and it filled the entire house. And I'm pretty sure the neighbors heard some of it too, because Bear was just very, very annoyed. But I'm still trying to figure out why the turkey was upside down in the first place. I mean, that's just, we wanted to turn it over to get the thermometer in it, so that we could see whether it was ready. I mean, any fool could see it was ready, but you know, you want to get that 165 degrees there. But no idea why the turkey was upside down. I decided it was not a good time to ask, discretion being the better part of valor, and Bear being much bigger than me and very annoyed. He takes out his annoyance on inanimate objects, but having a very big person stomping around, screaming and throwing inanimate objects is not fun. So I avoid that. Aries, when it was alive, I don't even know how that damn thing could walk. I swear. We buy chicken leg quarters all the time. As a matter of fact, if anybody has a membership to Restaurant Depot, ours right now have chicken leg quarters for 28 cents a pound if you buy them by the case. We buy chicken leg quarters. The chicken leg quarters we buy were larger than this turkey leg. It was just bizarre. This must have been a severely mutated turkey. I don't know what Jenny O does when they build their birds, but it was literally all breast. And I mean, we're talking breast pieces that were, each breast probably weighed over 1.5 pounds. Just solid meat. And then there's bones everywhere and little legs and little wings. Really weird. You got to wonder about what they do to turkeys these days. I mean, I'm kind of curious about that. But it tasted really good. I will say that. It was a really good flavor. Yeah, Chris, put Madonna to shame, most definitely. I mean, if this was a female, this would be a female that was Jessica Rabbit with a breast augmentation, if this was a female or a cartoon character. That it was that ridiculous. There was no meat on the wings either, and not much meat on the legs. It's just bizarre what they do to turkeys now. I have no idea. You know, who am I to judge? Exactly. But yeah, maybe one of you guys wants to take a chance asking him why he put the turkey in the pan breast down. I still haven't asked. It was not worth trying to figure out at the time. And I bought the cat some cat toys so Pixel would actually exercise. He is studiously ignoring them, which should not surprise me at this point. Winging it. We were going to can the turkey, but I've just been eating my way through it. And at this point, I looked at it about day 2, and it was like, spend all day canning or eat it right now. So I ate it. You know, oh well. Not going to be good that way. But we are going to head over to Restaurant Depot probably and pick up a case of chicken breast or pick up a case of chicken leg quarters or both and get to canning those. Yeah, Chris, if I can find another turkey on sale, I will. But the turkeys we have on sale right now are sad, anemic looking things. And, you know, they're more like baby. Yeah, all the big ones disappeared. He's back. I've been telling him about how you mangled my turkey.
How I wanted your turkey?
How you mangled my turkey.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. Okay, so kind of hard to see. Let's see. That's a little too much light. That pretty sensitive camera there. Okay, so it was concentrated nitric acid, but I've diluted it. Yeah, 3 or 4 to 1. And here's some of the material. And not much in the way of a visible reaction. So that leads me to believe, Chris, that that's not limestone. Now, just for jollies, let's see what happens here.
Should try some on that silver rock.
This is a bullet that ran through the RC-46. This is copper jacket here. So let's add it in here and see what happens. See if we get a reaction. Kind of hard to see in this light. Excuse me for blinding everyone. Okay, it's definitely bubbling, kind of slowly. Now we're going to go and let that react for a little bit. Put it out of the way of the cats. And let's see if the brass beads from the impact milling react a little more vigorously here. Just for jollies. You can see how it's changing color. Yeah, it's reacting fairly vigorously. Now, let's see. Can you see the... Don't think you can see the fumes very well. Yes, that shows up the fumes reasonably well. See that brown in the column? That's nitric oxide fumes. That's really not that good. So I'm going to get that out of the house for a minute as everything digests, and then we can try Chris's trick with the steel. Oh my goodness. All the lights are out. Which one's those? That's that one. Okay.
There's again.
Okay, so I'm going to allow that to digest in an environment which is more helpful to me than right in front of my computer. And then I do have a piece of steel, Chris, that I can throw in there. And we know there will be copper because I put both copper and brass in there. Let's see. Dilute that acid first. Let's see. You're making soup. Dilute the, okay, we're like 20%. No, that's more like 10% or something. I'm not going to sniff the recipe. I know what nitric acid does. Will that give you a nitro headache? Is it nitric oxide? I know nitroglycerin will give you a hell of a headache. Where do you get the hydrochloric acid? I'm using nitric right there. Hydrochloric acid you can get often in the grocery stores. If people have a lot of pools around, it's a common pool chemical used for adjusting the pH in a pool. And yes, it will also react well with limestone. Geologists will often have a little dropper bottle of diluted hydrochloric acid with them to put on rock to see if it's limestone or dolomite. No, Aries, all here. Although one of them did have a little brown spot from the other day. No, it wasn't 68%. It wasn't fuming nitric, just regular concentrated nitric acid. I think that's 35%, but no, not red fuming nitric. Uh, yeah, that would be a good thing if there was ore piled up next to a mill or rock piled up next to a mill, suggesting it was feed that hadn't been run. That would be a good thing to test. Absolutely. Muriatic acid, hydrochloric, yeah, industrial grade hydrochloric acid. Yep. Well, yeah, I mean they're nitric oxide, but I mean nitroglycerin is just that, nitroglycerin. Um, I'm not sure how it would affect various things. I mean, the nitroglycerin expands your blood vessels. Would this be a cheap way of making Viagra? Hard on the lungs? Yeah, that must have been fun, Chris. Everyone had to evacuate on the pronto, huh? 68%. I don't know. I think standard just concentrated nitric is 35, but it's been a while. Yeah, we had fun in chemistry class. I had a friend named Alan Johnson, and one time do you remember in chemistry class how you had a light bulb? Maybe the younger people don't. It had a light bulb with two electrodes sticking down, and you put different um, beakers of different solutions to see what would conduct electricity and wouldn't. And I mean, this wasn't any fancy thing. It was just a regular light bulb, plug it into the wall, that sort of thing. Of course, nowadays that'd be way too dangerous. And so we were doing that experiment as part of the chemistry class. And we were, Alan was going, well, these are kind of dirty. Let me clean them up. So he cleaned up the copper strips that were sticking down. And I go, you ready? And he goes, yeah. And then I go to plug it in. And I didn't realize he said, wait a minute. Because when he'd been cleaning them, they gotten out of a line. They were kind of like that. So he was grabbing them like this to align them when I plugged it in. And he started making rather loud, chaotic noises and stuff. And he's quick thinking. I mean, because your muscles go like that, and he could not let go. They'd wrapped around his fingers. So he just backed up until he pulled the plug out of the wall before I even had time to react. So that was pretty amusing. And we had a pretty cool chemistry teacher. He goes, are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. You sure you're all right? Yeah. He says, did you notice if the light lit up? Let's see. Yeah, it would be interesting, Joe, if you had some pictures, but I can't see them. Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. My chemistry teacher was pretty cool. World War II vet, used to fly in a B-17, lost a couple fingers to incoming fire. But one time he was making some stock solution of silver nitrate. And so he had a little left over, and he put some in a beaker and put a dime in the bottom of the beaker. And in each class that day, he said, now this is a very interesting effect. Stick your finger in the beaker and feel the dime and see the difference that the chemistry makes here. And so stick your finger in there and you start, and it felt waxy. It really did feel quite extraordinarily different. And about the time the last person in the class had tested the beaker, the first one's looking at their finger, noticing that it's getting dark. Because when you stick yeah, that's right, Chris. When you stick your finger into silver nitrate, the salt reacts to form silver chloride. on your skin. And the silver chloride is photosensitive and will reduce to metallic silver in sunlight or just light. And finely divided silver is black. So you can tell everyone who was in Mr. Johnston's class, because by the end of the day, everyone's walking around with black fingers about that long. It was pretty hilarious. Of course, you couldn't get away with that today. You know, you'd probably be in jail. Hi, Terry. Yep, you can get muriatic at Home Depot. Absolutely. Again, it's a pool chemical. So it's pretty common there. By the way, I think I may have gotten a little nitric on my hand. I'm going to go wash it real quick here. It won't be a second. I don't think I did, but it's a possibility. So anyhow, let's see. No, I've never dealt with hydrofluoric. I know it's some really nasty stuff. Feel the burn. Yeah. There goes the letters on the keyboard. No, I was very careful. I was more worried when I'm putting stuff in there to keep solids out of the keyboard. Let's see. What do you think, Chris? Think it's had plenty of time to react? And then should I dilute the nitric further before I stick in the steel or not? What's the problem with sulfuric? It doesn't wash off readily. I mean, I get sulfuric on me around the car battery. You know, nitric from laboratory supply. Yep. Yeah, you're not really going to get nitric at Home Depot. And hydrofluoric is some pretty nasty stuff. I don't have any iron. I've got steel. As a matter of fact, I got hot rolled. It's a piece of hot rolled strap. I sanded off the mill scale the best I could there, but I figured that will fit in there pretty easy. Dehydrate your skin far faster. I've never seen sulfuric set things on fire. I hear it can, but I've never seen it happen. It does do an interesting thing to sugar. Anyhow, okay, let me go get that diluted, and I'll be right back, folks. As you can see, you've got copper nitrate in there now. Nice, pretty color. Let's see. In theory, I can set this in there and still reach it. Yep. Okay, so now I've got steel in here. Now, how long do you think I should leave it, Chris? About a minute? Almost instant, huh? Okay. Wow, so much light. Let me rinse this off. I don't want to drip any nitric on the computer. That would be a bad thing. Now let's see. Little one, can you tell me, can you see well the color on your computer? I know you can see it. I can see it fine. But can you see it on the computer?
Yes.
Okay, nice and clear. Yeah. See, there's your electroless plating of the copper on the steel. Just that quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Smoking Jokin says, I missed something. What are we doing here?
Well, what we're doing is a few little field tests and also just some fun experiments. First thing, let me get rid of this nitric acid here. Set it outside for the rest of the evening here, and then bring it in at the last minute. Now, what happened, Smoking, was when I went to Ryan's mine, there was a rock face that had alternating layers of quartz and non-quartz. And I could tell that by the hardness of the rock. Quartz is harder than a knife blade, and this other stuff was not. Now, there's a lot of minerals that are softer than quartz, but a likely one is limestone or some other form of calcite. So the idea was to take some of the material of the non-quartz and put it in acid, which if it is calcite, limestone, calcite, all these things, it will fizz pretty vigorously. And that did not fizz. So I'm guessing some kind of a feldspar probably. But anyhow, while we were at it, Chris thought it would be kind of cool to show people what happens when you have an acid solution of copper and you put iron in it. The iron will exchange its atoms for copper atoms in the solution, and it will plate the copper onto the iron. And so that's what we just did. And yeah, it was kind of hard to see because of the stupid camera is so light sensitive. I mean, I'm sitting here kind of in the dark, and yet it's still brightly lit according to the camera. It's very light sensitive. I may have to take that and basically just almost eliminate that light to see what's going on. Hi, John. How's it going? Yep, copper and acid and plated steel. Keep the ETOH, ethyl alcohol, away from that mix. I'm guessing that's ethyl alcohol. Yeah, I'm literally going to pour it on the ground because the ground out here is so alkaline, it'll just neutralize it real easily. Pouring it down the sink is questionable. And so anyhow, that is what we were showing. Just a couple things at once. One is you can test for copper in solution by just adding some iron and see if you plate copper. And the other was limestone and acid yields instant fizz. That's also, when I had that material that looked kind of like gold, actually it was probably cartridge casings going through the impact mill. Nitric acid dissolves a lot of things. It's not very selective. And so that, is a useful tool for many things. By the way, it's not just being diffused. I mean, it's basically shining that away. All you're seeing is reflected light. The light is not on me at all. It's just amazing. It'll look funny on his head. Yeah, well, we got to wear a mask, right? Hey, that's a good question. If you were wearing pantyhose as a mask, it is a face covering, right? Oh, I already did that outside, Chris. I don't like to do the first time in here, especially over my computer. I wanted to make sure that the reaction was controllable, etc. Pure nitric acid will not dissolve gold. Pure hydrochloric acid will not dissolve gold. You mix them together, it'll dissolve gold in a hurry. That's called aqua regia. And Chris can probably explain it better, but the nitric acid provides essentially the energy, the oxidizing potential, and the hydrochloric acid provides the chloride ions to turn the gold into gold chloride. And yeah, it will dissolve it pretty quick. Okay, Chris. Well, let me show you what the light looks like. There's the light right there. You'll notice it's not shining on me at all. Now I can cut it by simply something like that, just to reduce the amount. But I mean, it's not shining on me in the slightest. It's all reflection. So yeah, it's actually kind of annoying. Maybe I can turn it that way. How does that work? A little better. Now it looks a little weird, but at least it's not glaring. Maybe we can see that copper now. Let's see. How do I tell if you're looking at gold under a microscope? Experience helps, but it's very, very difficult to be certain unless you're dealing with a natural product. And by looking at the either crystalline forms or dendritic forms, you can tell by the shape that what you're looking at is gold. You can also do the acid testing underneath a microscope too. You could add, say, nitric acid under a microscope and see if it decomposes. If it does, it's not gold. It can be hard on the microscope though. It's entirely possible, Aries, but I don't deal with that. I don't hurt electrons. That's for other people. You need a soft box. Well, it's being reflected against stuff that's all diffuse and everything. I'm looking at it, for example, right now, and it's a 2-foot area of white stucco that it's reflecting from. So yeah, Smoking Joe, I'm not an electron herder. Okay, I think we've had enough time for that stuff to plate as much copper as possible. We have different light now, so I'm going to go see about getting that. Eva, you want to take over for just a minute while I get the sample and dump out the acid and rinse everything off and then dry it and bring it back in here?
Okay.
Okay. So she will try and keep some sort of something going while I'm frolicking.
Yeah, Bear is playing mad scientist, and I'm completely ignoring it because I'm talking about keto and semiotics on Reddit right now. So that's the way that goes. The light source itself needs the diffusion. It's too well collimated to spread evenly on the reflectors. And Quite possibly. It's a desk lamp. They're kind of weird that way. So from what I have heard, we seem to be electroplating copper. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but it looks pretty interesting. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. It smells pretty bad, but that's to be expected when Bear is playing with chemicals again. You know, it's just one of those things. Chris, there hasn't been a pair of pantyhose in this house for probably 15 or 20 years. I don't do pantyhose. Pantyhose are ridiculous. It's just totally, they are not in my worldview. And yes, smoking science is fun. As long as you guys like random basic chemistry stuff, that's fine with me. Yeah, he does need a fume hood. He actually needs an entire lab. I wouldn't mind having all kinds of lab stuff around. Wow.
Yeah. She says that a lot when she sees me, but anyway. Okay, let's see if we can see it now. That's better. Now you can also see where the places where I did not get the scale off of there, which is I presume is primarily iron oxide, didn't plate worth a darn. The other side had more scale on it, and you can see that. But that's copper plating from just ion exchange, basically. Can you put your sample in a kiln with some flux? Which sample and why would I wish to do that? What am I trying to accomplish is the question. You can certainly do it. The question is, what are you trying to do? And that determines what flux and everything else. Yeah, although I think if you take a long time, you can continue to plate it thicker in a relatively porous manner. I mean, just they used to take like scrap steel and scrap wire and things like that and use it for precipitation. Using the acids and some other fun stuff. Well, back in the old days, Stephen, they had a philosophy that if you're going to grow up to become an adult, you had to learn how to play with dangerous stuff. And lawyers have kind of screwed that one up. So we don't get to play with dangerous stuff until there's no supervision and we can die. So that made everyone much safer, I'm sure. Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. It also looks like my camera's rotated a little bit after all that stuff. Let's see. That make it any better? I think that's making it worse. Okay, so that's tilting this way. That's pretty much vertical, pretty close. It's not too bad. Go down just a little bit more. There we go. That's much better. Well, you can't really blame the teachers for being cautious nowadays because, you know, they can lose your job for the most idiotic things. Where do I sell my gold? Currently, I'm not. I'm processing for someone else, and he just takes it and gives me money. So typically, people like jewelers will know refiners and such. If you have large quantities, you can sell direct to refiners. You can go to the California Mining Journal, and there's ads for refiners in there. But the people who take impure gold and pay you for it are typically refiners. Oh yeah, kinetics of nitrocellulose production. Yep. If you had to get all the powder off an adit floor, how would you go about it? I presume you want to see the bedrock itself. If you had drainage and water, a pump and a hose would be a good option. If you don't, probably a cordless vacuum cleaner or something to that effect. After scraping and sweeping to get what you could off, then suck up the rest. Then you're still going to have trouble seeing the rock if you don't take and at least spray a little water on it. That makes it a lot more visible. Lars, that's not the way you do it. You just make more powder that way. Venturi vac, that could work. You know, again, you're going to need some kind of fluid moving around some way, either vacuuming or hosing. One way that mining companies in the past, especially if a tunnel's been filled with water, so it has slime all over everything, come in and actually use a pressure washer to wash off the walls to get a good idea of what the rock looks like. It does a great job. It's a little bit time consuming, but it will do a very good job of cleaning the rock to where you can see what the heck's going on. That's a very effective way of visualizing the situation. Oh, let's see. Anything else in particular for late arrivals? First of all, the miner bago is running again. Thank you very much, Jim, for all of your help. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be selling Christmas trees, and that's a 7-day-a-week job until Christmas Eve, so I'm not sure if I'm going to have any live streams for that. I'll see what I can do, but depends on how busy we are. If it's really slack and we can get Eva's tablet to live stream, we can see about doing a remote live stream, see if we can figure out how to do that. And there's gold all over the floor. Well, I'd use a vacuum then. So we'll see what we can do, but don't expect much in the way of live streams until after Christmas. And don't expect a whole lot in the way of videos because I won't have much to do that I can video besides Christmas trees. Also, if anyone sees commercials on my channel, let me know. YouTube's trying to monetize everything, even if you don't give approval. And if they do decide to monetize your channel, then at least I want to tell them, okay, give me my cut, please. Dan Hurd had a good video today on essentially mineral specimens. They were getting what they call ocean picture stone, which is a colored quartz in a quartz matrix and stuff. Very pretty stuff, but you're trying to get it with minimal breakage. So they were using feathers and wedges. He tried a hydraulic rock splitter that didn't do a very good job. The rocks broke the splitter, not the other way around. But it was a very interesting video for those of you who want to see that. And so that's kind of what happened this week. I had Jason over here on Monday with some samples. That's where we did the fool's gold from bullet casings. Tuesday, I went out to Ryan's mine, had a good time, got some samples, and got them crushed, panned, and sent out to the lab. Should have results by the end of next week. Hopefully, I'll get some kind of a quick video out on that, what the various assays were. Probably just take the same video and just add text where showing the actual assays, because that'll be very simple. Then I can just upload that when I'm home. And so I say that's the kind of the news of the week sort of thing. It's nice having the minor bagel back, especially I'm an old man with old man's bladder, and when I'm selling Christmas trees, it's nice to have the minor bagel parked right next to there with Eva's little porta potty in it. It makes it very easy to take care of necessary functions.
And sanitizer.
I'm not sure what the purpose of that was, little one.
Hi, old man.
Hey, how's it going, old man? Interestingly enough, she gets the messages before I do, but when we're first starting the stream, I'm saying it several seconds before she hears it. So I'm not sure why they have all the different time delays.
Yeah, no clue on that, but I do get the messages before you sometimes.
Let's see. Transport distance becomes a problem if you don't have positive flow. Yeah, if you're sucking solids a long distance through a hose, especially if it's a corrugated hose, you're going to tend to just catch the gold. So if it's going a long distance, I would make absolutely certain that you use a smooth inner bore hose of some sort. And a lot of vacuum hoses have spiral ribbing to keep it from collapsing under the pressure. That could be a problem. That's the nice thing about a Venturi vacuum is it's actually positive pressure inside the tube. My Transport Canada. You got a pilot certificate. Well, good for you, old man.
Woohoo!
Very good. How often do you find gold with mica? Quite frequently. Mica is a fairly common chemical. Usually the gold is not right in the rock that has the mica, but they're often very close together. Mica is usually associated with metamorphic or igneous intrusives, and the hydrothermal deposits don't actually make the mica itself, but it can easily be, in the wall rock, or even if the wall rock's been broken by movement along the fault, the wall rock can be mixed in with the hydrothermal deposits in kind of a brecciated matrix. So I say mica is just so ubiquitous. It's real easy to find in the same place with gold, but it's not deposited in the same manner at the same time as the gold. What's advanced ops level, old med? We must be crazy looking for gold. It's not a rational way of gathering wealth if you wish to do it securely and reliably. Absolutely. If you just want to make money, there's lots of other ways that are much more reliable than gold mining. It has to be, a passion to a certain extent, unless you're a professional where you've spent a lot of time getting proper qualifications, and then you get hired by big mining companies. That's another way of doing it. Getting a geomatics license. Not sure what that means. Special flight operation. Well, what are special flight operations, Altmed?
Yeah, winging it.
That's a good question, Chris. You might be correct. Up there, float planes are very, very common, but overall they're not. to fly in restricted space.
Swinging it points out we must be crazy looking for gold based on lesson 7. Absolutely, you're all nuts.
I say that. The thing is, there are people who make money off of people like us who are not, I mean, they aren't crazy because they're selling products. You know, they have something, they make a profit when they sell it. And, you know, so that's it. Think Keen Engineering, for example. They make money selling dredges. How many dredgers make money? You know, I mean, over expenses. Not many, but Keen Engineering's been around a long time because they make a decent product at a reasonable price that does the job reasonably well. And as such, they can just keep cranking them out and people will keep buying them. Okay. Geomatics is geotechnical stuff. Okay. Water sellers got the richest. Yeah, maybe in Arizona. I got. Okay. But that's, say, the people who sold the food, the equipment, the booze, the women.
Prostitutes.
They're the ones that made money consistently. The miners themselves, yeah, definitely not so much. And even the people who own mining companies, you know, wins were a lot less frequent than losses, guaranteed. Yeah, exactly. Mine the miners. And I say I want to sell equipment, but first I want to. I don't know if it's pride or challenge or whatever, but I mean I want to design equipment that's better than the stuff I've purchased and found wanting in the past. And you know, when I have something that works well for me, then I should be able to duplicate it for others. And yes, both muscovite and biotite are different forms of mica. As a general rule, muscovite will be silvery or white in color, and biotite is the more yellow or dark brown or gray in color. The stuff that you will generally mistake for gold is biotite. And up in Idaho, I found especially wet biotite. When you pulled stuff up from the river bottom that had a lot of biotite in it, sometimes it really looked like gold. But it doesn't act like gold. It flakes easily. It's in a bunch of little small layers and stuff. It's pretty easy to identify. So yeah, that's, yeah, mica. It's one of the easier things to identify as fool's gold. It also doesn't have near the density of gold, so as soon as you start panning it, it's going to float off. It's not that easily mistaken. Chalcopyrite is yellow, has the right color, the right luster. It's a solid, not a bunch of little flakes, and it's dense, but it's brittle, whereas gold is malleable. And if you have a big enough piece, it's pretty easy to tell that. Also, looking at the fracture planes on it, it looks like when you break glass, it's got that kind of curved fracture. It's called conchoidal fracture, and that's, you know, pretty definitively not a malleable surface. So under magnification, quite often you can tell because the gold looks like a malleable metal and the chalcopyrite looks like a brittle solid. If you got a big enough piece, you can just hit it with a hammer. Let's see. So I say it's not that hard in most cases. The the brass that we ran into the other day, that was more than usually similar to gold. It was yellow, it was metallic. The difference was that it dissolved rapidly in concentrated nitric acid, and gold wouldn't be touched by it. So that was pretty diagnostic, pretty definitive. And so that's what it is. Does anyone else have any questions here? Good Lord, it's only been an hour and 45 minutes. We're already running out of questions. Yep, Old Med, technology is a wonderful thing if you know how to use it. And if you can make it dance better than other people, you should be worth quite a lot. Again, anyone else got any questions out there? And Old Med and Chris are having a productive conversation here. Perhaps I can help someone else. No, your IQ level increased. Your perceived IQ level decreased. Aries. It's all relative, as Einstein said. No, but by observing their conversation, you do learn things. For gas meters these days, Keith. Where is that little rascal? I'm working on it. I gotta find the right compartment. Well, I was up in Montana, and I was going to be going down deep in that decline.
Check out your video for a minute, Bear. I need to
Okay.
clear the cache and cookies on my browser.
This is the one that I got. It's a cheap Chinese meter. It does hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, carbon monoxide, and I believe it's hydrocarbons. I think that's what EX is. Just a little thing here. Has a clip on the back so you can hang it. It has a digital readout as to what the concentrations are. And it also has alarms. It comes preset with the standard OSHA limits for the various things, although you can custom set them if you wish to a different concentration. And it appears to have 4 different gas sensors here because it has 4 different openings. And
welcome to is intelligent voice gas detector. Starting. Please wait.
And so it will sit here and boot up. Wow, it's so bright. That's just the backlighting. You can't even read it. And so basically it's booting up, and it's the measuring the background, it's calibrating and showing the alarm levels, allowing you to okay. So it's got H2S, O2, CO, and EX. And the various limits are showing on the screen right now, which you can't see due to the backlighting. And if it exceeds those limits, it will say something, it will vibrate, etc., which is really cool. And currently, the oxygen is at 20.9%. Power off, yeah. So that's actually a very nice meter. It was right around $100. I don't know how good it is in terms of quality and reliability and such, but it hasn't apparently failed. And to say it's nice having a continuous digital readout of the oxygen concentration instead of just relying on an alarm to tell you if it's low or not. You can actually see what it is. The CO and H2S and stuff, basically, if you get any of that, it's a bad thing. Where did Eva stumble into accidentally? I have no idea here.
I'm not stumbling into anything accidentally. I need to clear my cookies and my cache files so I can get back to conservative treehouse.
Yeah. Can you email that model number when you get a chance? Well, I can probably just tell you. That might be the easiest thing. Oh, it would be nice to be able to have enough light to be able to read without washing out everything. Oh, let's see what it says here. Voice type gas detector. Yep. Nothing else on there. No name. I don't even know if it does have a number. That's hilarious. Talk about your nondescript. Well, you can change it from Chinese to English. Product information. Detector is widely used in this, that, and the other. Holy crap. I don't see a name or a model number anywhere. Well, that's hilarious. I have not a clue. It's got a USB port. Oh. A nondescript case. Wow. Silica gel pack, charger, charging cable. It's a rechargeable. It doesn't take batteries, replaceable batteries. It's rechargeable. And it has a battery level indicator. But you know what, Chris? I really don't know, because I think it's kind of a generic one that some Chinese company makes and a lot of different people sell. I just went to Amazon and looked it up, gas detector or something like that. But it looks like that, and there's no indication of the manufacturer or the model number on anything I can see. That is amazing. I don't even know if it's legal. One would suspect it's not. But yeah, it's on Amazon. This is roughly $100 to say it's rechargeable as opposed to using replaceable batteries. Inside battery, it doesn't have a battery cover. It's got screws on the back. I'm a little afraid to take it apart. Yeah. Yeah, poker face, that's correct. You should. But in micro scale mining, sometimes you don't follow all the rules absolutely to the letter. Yeah, it might be on the circuit board inside, but I have to take a screwdriver to open it up, and I don't want to do that. What are your rights when you want to look at potential claims on BLM land, but ranchers or anyone has locks on the entrance gates? It would depend on your jurisdiction. But if you're cutting somebody's lock, you're damaging private property. I suggest you check with the local authorities to get an idea of what the land access issue is in that area before proceeding further. If it's supposed to be open land, then they're not supposed to be blocking you from getting onto it, although you might be able to just walk on or something, but double check with the authorities. Look on the battery inside. Can't get inside without taking a screw off. And you may be right, Jeremy P. Do not know. Yeah, if it doesn't have an easement, then you may not have access. Scary. It has a digital readout. I mean, I know what the oxygen level in the air is. I can also take it and put it in the exhaust of, say, a generator and calibrate it that way, and see if it's, it should suddenly start going crazy. But I've done a lot of stuff with no meters whatsoever, so it's better than nothing. Yeah, no name cuts down on lawsuits. I imagine so. It's kind of hard to sue the manufacturer when you have no idea who the manufacturer is. Yeah, Chris, that'll work, kind of, sorta. Yeah, no, you should always have somebody, in civilization who knows where you're going, what you're doing, when you're going to be back, and can send help if you're not back on time. Absolutely. Okay, Argonaut, do pulverized sulfur ores gravity separate, or do you need to roast them first? Okay. As a general rule, if you had a sulfide ore, you would crush it and then gravity concentrate the sulfides first. Then you would roast the sulfides or leach them or do whatever. The sulfides are going to run about twice the density of the rock, and they pretty easily gravity concentrate. They also will respond well, in most cases, to froth flotation, which is the industry standard way of recovering sulfides in large quantities. The big copper mines, for example, use froth flotation. And then, for example, in the case of a copper mine, they float the sulfides and concentrate them. Then they would smelt them. They don't even roast them and then pan them. I mean, they mix them with flux and smelt them down into molten copper. Then they electrolytically refine the copper into pure copper and gold and silver sludge and a few other things. Get a canary. Yeah, old Med. Let's see. So there's a number of ways of recovering gold from sulfides, but as a general rule, you have to break them down first. Big mining companies have been trying to figure out a way to break down sulfides cheaply for a long time. They haven't succeeded too well, to my knowledge. I have some isulfide ore to play with in my little test cell. Yeah, not sure. I don't have any of that handy, Chris.
Yeah, if somebody wants to give Bear his own mad scientist lab for Christmas, feel free.
Actually, a shop would be nice. But anyhow. Yeah, I mean, if you got lots of time and, typically you'll need to keep it oxygenated and a few other little things, Thiobacillus ferroxidants can do a lot. But in terms of high speed, low drag, they haven't come up with anything yet. Yeah, old med. The law is what the lawyers say the law is. Unfortunately, we're getting into that right now, where the Supreme Court of a particular state just overturned a judge's opinion that, well, because that law violates the state constitution, it's no good. And they're going, we don't care. You know?
There.
So
Be careful.
I am. But I say it's pretty much the law is whatever the authorities say the law is and will enforce or not enforce, whatever that turns out to be.
By the way, the pretender elect tweeted when he got out of his medical appointment.
Yeah.
He's wearing a boot now.
Whoop-de-doo. So I say that's the general thing with sulfides. Another thing you can often do with sulfides is if you can get a good sulfide concentrate, quite often you can sell that to a refiner for a reasonable cost. Arsenal pyrites are kind of the exception because the arsenic makes it a real pain in the ass in a regulatory manner to deal with. But if it's just a very simple, like a chalcopyrite or an iron pyrite concentrate, then the cost for processing is often quite reasonable, and saves you a lot of hassle if you're doing it in sufficient quantity. So that's another option that may be available to you depending upon the quantity that you've got and stuff. Yep, that's right. You know, I say those sulfide minerals, some of them are valuable, and especially like chalcopyrite. Iron pyrite, not so much. Nobody really, wants the iron. There's plenty of that around. But sulfide cons with lots of gold in it can often be sold to a refinery a quite reasonable thing. We were looking at one years ago where they were going to charge like $800 a ton to process it, and it had about $10,000 worth of gold per ton. So we're talking, an 8% cost. Well, that's a lot cheaper than building all the equipment to make that happen myself. Not sure what that means, Patrick's. Yeah, sailing solar. Life is getting interesting. You're aware of the old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times? What would they use iron sulfide for in the green industry, Chris? Not sure.
I'm back. Good one, Patrick, and quite true.
Oh, I got it now. I'm not very good at those things. Yeah, I say it's just that's an ancient Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times, because interesting means complicated and unpredictable. Boring means you know what's going to happen. Yeah. I have never mined any silver. One of the complications with silver is it's chemically combines much easier than gold, and therefore to actually recover metallic silver is almost always substantially more complex than recovering gold, and the value is such that, in some cases, the silver is the major economic value, but I say it's a much more complex commodity to understand, especially the mineralogy. If you can make a good concentrate with a lot of silver, and again, you can sell that to a refiner pretty easy, depending upon the chemistry of the silver minerals involved, it may or may not be relatively easy to recover it yourself. For example, if it's a silver fluoride, sodium thiosulfate, I believe, will simply dissolve it. And sodium thiosulfate's relatively non-toxic.
Yes. Chris, the rocket scientist, agrees with me. I've been saying for forever that silver is undervalued. I don't know why everybody goes after gold.
Because it's a lot simpler. That's why. I say I wouldn't laugh at silver. I wouldn't avoid it if I ran into a good silver mine. But it's just one of those things that it's by its very nature. It's like hard rock gold versus placer gold. By its nature, more complicated. Same with silver. Silver rarely is by itself. It's usually combined with other elements. And so we shall see. And obviously, if the price changes dramatically, then the situation changes dramatically. Little one, can you take over for a couple minutes here?
I'm back, everybody. And unfortunately, I still cannot comment on Conservative Treehouse. If I can't comment after another couple of days, then I'll just have to email them and find out. But at least their migration to a new server went very well and ahead of schedule, since they were being evicted from WordPress on December 1st. So if anybody has any suggestions about how one would do a live stream from a Kindle Fire, that would be helpful. I don't know if we would get the opportunity to do it because Bear is going to be working Christmas trees, so we may not be able to do a live stream anyway, but I would just like to know if it's even possible. I'm assuming if I logged on to YouTube from the Kindle Fire, because it has a camera, it would work.
Keep talking.
They're discussing the Comstock mine right now for silver.
Okay. I'm sure Chris knows a lot on it.
Yeah. I always personally have been more of a fan of silver and crystals than gold myself. A nice mineral mine, a nice fluorite mine would be a very nice thing to me, but yeah. Bear likes gold, so Bear goes after gold. Well, it depends on the gemstones, Resort Dog, because a lot of times you have to use very low tech to mine them if you don't want to damage them. So that is one thing that comes into consideration, but that's fine with me. Bear is back. Back the bear.
Yes, I know I'm not nearly as pretty, but such is life. You guys will just have to deal with it. Let's see.
Yeah, it is resort dog.
Now, the problem with open pits are they're also very visible, and the environmentalists do not like them at all. Uh, I personally think Labradoride's beautiful. Next to Opal, it's one of the prettiest things out there.
I like Seraphonite.
It's okay, but I'm saying. Well, it depends on what you mean by a fluid bed separator. There's elutriation type fluid beds where you have a rising column of water and fluidizes it. You have like jigs. That's kind of a fluidized bed concentrator. Even a rocker box would be kind of a fluidized bed concentrator. And I have some familiarity with them, but when it comes to hard rock gold, the challenge is creating some kind of fluidization that doesn't suspend the gold particles because they're so darn small. And I've made some inroads to that. But the basic phenomenon seems to be associated less with fluidized bed and more with the substrate beneath the fluidized bed in terms of getting it. Column of water ones. That would be elutriation probably in terms of where it's a rising column of water. And that'll work okay. However, the settling velocity of the gold is highly dependent upon the size and shape of the gold particles, and the same with the rock particles. So as a general rule, you have to classify it pretty tightly. Hold on just a moment. Hello? Who's this? Hey, Deacon, what's up? Possibly. I'm not going to be at the house in the morning for sure. If you call me up later, I'll see about setting it on my workbench there. It's in the mobile mini. The air compressor's out by the workbench. But yeah, I'm going to be doing Christmas trees tomorrow, and I'm on a live stream right now. So, but yeah, it's inside the mobile mini if you want to come pick it up. Okay. Probably about 10 o'clock. Okay, bye. So the problem with a elutriation type fluid bed cells is what kind of gold particles do you have and what are you trying to separate it from? If it's tightly sized and the gold is not flaky, it'll probably work reasonably well. If the gold is flaky and you're trying to separate it from pretty big particles of rock, not going to work nearly as well. If you're trying to separate small flakes of gold from small crystals of hematite or something like that, probably not going to work so well. I hope that's helpful there. You'll have to check it. Like everything else, it's very, very situation and ore dependent. So you have to check it out. Yeah, to a great extent, a properly operating sluice has a fluid bed. Yeah. It was Sweet Child of Mine. I don't know. You're welcome, Sailing Solar SA. See if you can test it cheaply before you buy or build anything on a larger scale. And if you're looking at potentially purchasing a piece of equipment from somebody, ask them if you can test your ore on it first, because depending upon what it is, it may not work worth a crap for your particular ore, although it may work just beautifully in another situation. There is no machine that does everything well. It doesn't exist. If it did, nothing else would be out there. That's a good question, Chris. What exactly are you trying to do, Sailing? What kind of gold, what kind of matrix are you trying to separate? Still waiting for an answer, but anyhow. Anyone else have any questions we can attack? Oh, okay. Yeah, as say Sailing, there's many devices that work well in different situations. Some are much more selective than others, and they'll work great on that sort of situation, but not worth a crap on anything else. So never buy equipment without knowing the application and whether or not it'll work for the application, unless you absolutely have to. You know, if you have to guess, so to speak. But come on the live stream and ask, give us particulars. And let's see, what leads you to believe them on? The amount of tellurium in the multi-element analysis. As I recall, it was running 100 or 200 parts per million tellurium, and it's running roughly that or less gold. And according to Chris, and I'm not familiar with tellurides myself, he says generally if there's tellurium there and there's gold there, they're going to be bound together. But that's basically it. It does have tellurium in significant quantities. It's also dreadfully difficult to isolate the gold as free milling gold. Although there's something I call the chocolate brown heavies that may be actually tellurides. It's hard to tell. But we have to do some more testing on that. Okay, Patrick, which ore are you talking about? Because different ores are different colors. And so I'm not sure which one you're talking about, which makes it difficult to answer your question. In the case of Montana B, we even had two different mineralized structures that looked radically different. One was a vertical vein that had your typical, orange, brown, iron stained look to it. And the other one was a 60-degree slope. The strike was 90 degrees almost to the other one. And it was, it had some iron browns in it in places. And it also had some like blacks and reds and all kinds of other colors. The suspected Montana B telluride is kind of a chocolate brown heavy. When I'm panning it, You can tell by how it behaves in the pan as to what the density is roughly, especially if you have known minerals there and other materials like, gold's always going to be at the top of the pan. And then you're going to have things less dense in sequence. And I mean, you can often, for example, see, the pyrite's just above, some light hematite and this, that, and the other. I mean, you can see them grade pretty well sometimes in the pan. And these chocolate brown heavies, a mineral called calaverite can look chocolate brown, and it's basically gold telluride, about roughly half gold, half tellurium. And it has a density about like that of steel or lead, which is intermediate with between most heavy minerals. Like sulfides are around a 5 to 6 specific gravity. Steel's, I think, 8.5. Lead's about 10. I think calaverite was 9.5 or something like that. Just remembering here, and I could easily be wrong. And as such, it's obviously a dense mineral. I'm not recognize it. I hadn't seen it before. And when you're talking, the grades of gold that we're looking at in the assays versus what I'm recovering in the pan in free gold, which is less than 10%, it leads you to believe, where the hell is the gold? It could be very, very fine and simply not gravity separating at all. It could still be bound up in other minerals, again, in fairly finely divided form. Or it could be, I say, in the form of a mineral that you're not recognizing. And say that is a possibility that will have to be checked out. I say right now I got plenty to keep me busy. I do have one bucket of that ore down here. I am waiting to test it last while I get other stuff tested with things like Ryan's ore, because I only have the one bucket. Now there's a lot up there in Montana. One thing we did the last trip was we just screened a bunch of stuff from the dump. So they have between half a ton and a ton in buckets with lids on them sitting there up on the ranch in Montana that could theoretically be shipped for testing if needed. And yeah, so they would tend to end up in the middlings is what we're looking at the possibility of. May not be true. We shall see. I mean, it's very frustrating when your slimes run a higher grade than the head grade. I mean, when you're trying to settle something, the gold isn't settling. That lets you know that there's something radically wrong here. And I say, whatever mineral form it is, or extremely fine, it can be so fine it's colloidal, it'll never settle under gravity situations. So it's really hard to tell exactly what's going on, but something that was pretty definitive that it's going to be tough, if not impossible, to gravity separate is the slimes, i.e. the muddy water that you then take hours and hours to settle. That mud had a higher grade of gold in it, a higher percentage of gold than the ore that we fed into the process in the first place. That's not a good thing. Not if you're trying to gravity separate. That's entirely possible, Chris. Again, I've got 2 hours a day to do stuff. I don't have a lot of time. Finally got the Bago running. Say, you may be entirely correct, but I can only test things so fast. It's very frustrating. Well, it may not be worth trying to save. When it's running 1.5 ounces to the ton, your slimes are worth doing something with. And it may just require leaching. I mean, if it's that fine, it'll dissolve fast. So that may be the answer. I don't go to leaching right off the bat because there's a number of negatives to leaching: cost, complexity, permitting, this, that, and the other, that are best avoided if you can. But there's times you just can't. You just have to do it. And it may be, Chris. I say we'll just have to see. And I say I could spend all day, every day for months doing nothing but trying stuff. Right now, with just the options that I've got right now, I could do that. So I have to kind of priorities. Yeah. A saline leach may work. I don't know. I tell you this, as soon as you say leach, you're talking permits and you're talking high capital startup costs for any kind of throughput. I mean, 1 ton an hour, you're looking at $5,000 or $10,000 worth of equipment and stuff to get going. Prefer to avoid that. May not be able to. Do you have any tips on recreational prospecting? No sluice, just pan and hand tools. Okay, Nathan, are you talking placer gold or hard rock gold? Because they're entirely different animals. And if it's real fine, you can put it in a kiln with some flux. Yes, but at 1.5 ounces to the ton grade, you're not going to be able to do that economically winging it. Yeah. What's the tonnage of that dump like again? Probably 20 to 40 tons. Total average grade 0.5 ounces to the ton. If you screen it, you get about 1/3 to 1/4 of the tonnage and upgrade it to 1 ounce to the ton, roughly. So you're looking total 10 tons available of dump material at 1 ounce to the ton. That's not a lot to pay for a lot of capital cost. In terms of the mine itself, there's not a lot of high grade extant that we can see. There are places, but again, we're looking in the tens of tons, not hundreds or thousands. Oh, placer. Yeah, there's lots of good places to placer prospect. However, in Arizona, it's pretty much dry, so we don't have much in the way of wet placer processing, prospecting around here. Same with Nevada. By the time you get up to Idaho, Montana, California, places like that, one of the problems is that the known gold locations are often all claimed up. And so you have to get permission from claim owners or whatever. You can, if you're just looking to get experience and have some fun and stuff, you should explore the possibility of joining a prospecting club like GPAA or one of the more local ones, so you can get access to their claims and information from them. They'll be able to kind of tell you this claim has this kind of gold in these locations and stuff like that. The negative is they've generally been picked over pretty thoroughly, No, say that you get 40% of it as slimes, Chris. Yeah, say it's ugly. Trust me, it's ugly. If you were leaching, you'd probably be better off doing, if it was just kind of conventional, something like a carbon and pulp sort of situation. There's a lot of slimes. It's nasty slimes. It's not fun ore to work with. It's really nasty stuff. It turns to sludge in the impact mill. I mean, when you impact mill and stuff, it just gets nasty. Can you dry the slimes and then process dry wash or mercury arsenic leach? You're not going to process them dry, because you're not going to get it separated. If you can't separate it wet, you're sure not going to separate it dry. In terms of, I'm not sure what you mean by a mercury or arsenic leach. I've never heard of mercury used in leaching before. If you're talking amalgamation, no, it's too fine for that. Yeah, Chris, 40% of the slimes. Absolutely. Stuff's nasty. Absolutely nasty. You know? But as I say, it's just one of those things that if it's too fine to gravity separate at all wet, you're probably not going to be able to do anything dry. In terms of leaching, there's a variety of options, but when you have that much in the way of really, really fine stuff, you're going to have to do something. And say one of them would be what they call carbon in pulp, where you leach it and the gold is being dissolved in solution, and the adsorbent, generally activated carbon, or it could be an ion exchange resin. Those particles are in the pulp also. Since the pulp has been screened to say 50 mesh minus, and the particles are like 16 mesh plus, 10 mesh plus or bigger, then it's easy to separate those particles of attractant, so to speak, the ion exchange resin or the carbon. It's easy to separate that from the pulp once it's absorbed the gold from the pulp. And that's why they do carbon in pulp. No, amalgamation won't work. The problem with amalgamation is it's not generally very efficient in the first place overall, but the smaller the gold, the less efficient it gets. So if you got gold that's so fine that you just can't settle it, it's not going to amalgamate either. I have no idea on that, Chris. Electrostatic precipitation. Yeah, resin and pulp would probably play nicer. I'm kind of agreeing with that. You also might want to do what you can to minimize the overgrind. For example, it might be simpler in processing to use something more like rolls crushers or something, along with a recirculation circuit where you run it through rolls and you screen it to say 50 mesh and then run it back through the rolls to minimize the amount of fine powder generated, to minimize having to deal with all that fine powder later on down the road. It would depend on how it responded to the leaching solution. If the particular minerals are relatively porous and the gold is very fine, you may be able to get perfectly good dissolution times with a fairly coarse grind, say a 50 to 100 mesh, and try and minimize the amount of slimes. But yeah, it can just be a real pain. It may also be something that can be floated. Don't know. How do you go about getting permission on someone's claim? First of all, find out who they are and ask them. That can be fairly simple in some cases. Get in with the local gold prospecting community, and I say a club can be a good start on that. Because like, where do I get started? It's like a singles club is a good place to meet people, or a church is a good place to meet people. Well, prospecting club is a good place to meet people who, are interested in gold mining. Once you start networking locally, then it kind of grows by its own, and you can find people you can prospect with. A lot of times If you're healthy, a lot of these people are getting old and they could use some help. I mean, they need somebody with a stronger back than theirs is now. So they're perfectly willing to take on, you know, an extra person to help them out with the physical stuff. And so that, is often a good way. People don't realize, but a lot of the gold claims are owned by old geezers and their health is not getting any better. So that's a good way of meeting people and say it may take a little while, 6 months or so, but up in Montana now is a good time to start meeting people because you aren't going to be doing anything for another 4 to 6 months anyway due to the temperatures. Okay. Scott F., what did the old timers do to recover gold? That depends on what do you mean by old timers. In the old times, they used gravity techniques like sluicing, panning, stuff like that. And then they, started using amalgamation. I'm not sure when that was, but it was, before the 1800s, that's for sure. I suspect it was, a long time ago. Amalgamation is where you take liquid mercury, you get it to stick to a surface, typically like a copper plate. You clean the copper, put the mercury on, and it'll just stick to the copper, just coats it. And then clean gold, if it's of a sufficient size, when it hits that mercury, will stick to the mercury. And you just collect the gold that way. And then you scrape the mercury off the plate, filter it by just squeezing it through a chamois. You now have an amalgam ball, which you can then vaporize the mercury from and melt the gold. Now, mercury is toxic. The fumes are toxic. When you're vaporizing the mercury, the fumes are extremely toxic. So you have to use it carefully. Because it's toxic, it's not legal to use anymore. In the 1800s, they invented cyanide leaching. Sodium cyanide will dissolve gold. It's relatively selective. It's relatively inexpensive. And it's relatively easy to use. While it's toxic, it's easy to control. And it is not stable in the environment, so you can't really get large, long-lasting contamination. You can go to, around the West right now, and you can find mercury in streams that was left there over 100 years ago by the miners that got away from them just as a normal part of the process. There's certain losses. Cyanide is more complicated, but it works better on finer gold. The finer the gold, the better it works. Whereas amalgamation and gravity techniques, the coarser the better. So they're complementary. If you have a coarse hard rock gold or an ore that has coarse and fine, you may put a gravity circuit in ahead of the cyanide circuit because the coarser gold isn't going to dissolve fast enough in the cyanide anyway. It's going to get thrown away in the tailings. So that's what they're using now. And that was in the late 1800s that cyanide came into use. And that's kind of the standard tech for hard rock gold up till recently. Now they're trying to do some other stuff, but that's basically what it is. When you're talking placer gold, is gravity techniques, sluicing, jigging, things like that. But gravity separations, placer gold is coarser than hard rock gold, and gravity techniques are used almost exclusively there. You can also use flotation to recover gold, froth flotation. I believe that was invented even after cyanide dissolution. Okay. Nikunj, how are you? Good morning. Well, it's evening here, but wow, it's been a while since I've talked to you. How is everything going? I hope things have smoothed out a little bit and your efficiencies are up, and I hope I was helpful. Yep, I remember Nikunj.
remember Nikunj. Hi.
Yeah. Recirculating slimes through a whole house water filter filled with charcoal infused with pine oil. Possibly. Don't know how selective it would be and how quickly it would plug up, but that is a possibility. Um, smoking joking, no, I'm not sure. I haven't seen that video. Well, if you had pine oil to make the gold foam, then you wouldn't want it in the carbon. You could use the carbon as an absorbent where the pine oil was stuck to the carbon and then the gold would stick to the pine oil. Okay, so you've, you're recovering the solution from the vat leaching and then running it through carbon columns. I presume you get higher loading factors and you need less carbon that way. Am I correct, Nikunj? And how are the recoveries going in general? Now, for those of you who don't know, Nikunj is working a gold processing facility in Tanzania, or they're dry grinding the rock and then putting it in what you would call vats, basically a lined hole in the ground with a drain at the bottom, and then you add cyanide solution to the top and let it percolate through, then collect it out the bottom and run that through activated carbon. And he asked me a few questions a while back, and I even made a video or two to try and send him some information. I don't know how helpful it was. I'm hoping it was, but yeah, he was actually running a vat leaching situation over in Tanzania at the time. I was just trying to improve the efficiency of it. So as I'm kind of curious to see how it's going over there. How much Molly was that running, Resort Dog? Equivalent of 16 ounces per ton gold. 30 times 16, 300. 400 or 500 parts per million Molly then, huh? Why is it so few small-scale miners are aware of cyclonic methods? Because very few people use it. It's kind of a self-perpetuating loop. And I'm not familiar with cyclones either. Now, come on, Pixel, move. Move. Did you hear me, Nikunj? I was wondering how things are. Oh, there it is. I missed that one. You're doing well, thank you. Yes. All your tips were helpful of a recovery rate. Well, I'm glad I was able to help, Nikunj. I'd say it was an interesting situation, and I'm glad I was able to provide you with some useful assistance there. And for those of you who are not familiar with carbon in column, you have fluidized bed columns and you have packed columns. And in a packed carbon column, you tend to get the highest concentration on the inlet side, obviously, as it goes through, kind of filtering. A fluidized bed column, the carbon moves around, you get more even loading, and you get a little bit faster recovery, but you don't get as high a loading factors. So it they have pluses and minuses. Well, maybe if somebody made a hydrocyclone for the small minor, more people would be aware of it. Yeah, the cat wants attention. He is an attention hog, absolutely. I think it means hydrocyclone. Think of like a dry dust collector. It sets the stuff spinning, and the inlet comes in at a tangent, and then everything spins, and the solids tend to go to the bottom, and then there's a hole in the top. Dust collector pre-cleaners and stuff do that, and you can do that with a slurry also. And it does the same thing. It causes the solid particles to move outside and settle out much faster that way. Yeah, I was just wondering, Chris, if he was using the carbon, because pine oil on activated carbon, again, it would destroy the activation. But now you're getting something similar to a coal gold agglomeration there, where the metallic gold actually sticks to the carbon particles. So it might work in that manner. Carbon would be it's a good absorbent of oil, and I'd say that's one way you might be able to agglomerate the gold onto the carbon. So I'd say that's about it. This is one of the things I wanted to test, Chris. Because the coal gold agglomeration seems to have some potential, but I'm not sure how high a loading factor you can get. Yeah, I don't know about the selectivity, but the loading seems to be fairly modest. And that's the problem. It's like, why spend effort to not improve your concentration substantially? I mean, you want to, with something like that, I think you'd want to go like 100 to 1 or more concentration factor. And so I don't know. There seems to be precious little detailed information on coal gold agglomeration out there. Well, it's kind of nice seeing the Kunsch tonight. or hearing from him. It's been a while, and I was curious as to how that was going. Nikunj, you might be interested to know that maybe going to Zimbabwe in the not too distant future to help out on some projects there. By the way, am I pronouncing your name right, Nikunj? I think so, but I'm not sure. And so yeah, it's an interesting situation. At some small scale mining over there in Zimbabwe where people are doing custom milling and they're looking at maybe improving the efficiency of that. And I have a contact who's actually over there researching stuff and maybe laying groundwork, and we'll go from there. But it's interesting. Also, Nikunj, did you ever put in any kind of gravity separation before you started your leaching in case you have coarse gold associated with your ore? Because if you do, you're not going to recover it very well in the leaching. But it would be pretty easy to set up something that would capture the coarser gold, because you wouldn't carry, the fine gold you're just going to leach. That's just the coarser material, like the 50 to 100 mesh is not going to leach very well, but it's pretty easy to recover. Oh, well, thank you, Nikunj. I'm glad I got it right. I like to do my best to pronounce people's names right as a sign of respect. So you might want to consider just, a simple sluice with like corduroy or something like that in it. Okay, Nikunj. Your process, I don't know, your rock may have some coarser gold in it, which is a significant fraction of the total gold, and it will not dissolve fast enough in the cyanide to do you any good recovering that particular gold. If you have like 20 or 50 mesh gold or anything like that. But after you ground the rock, if there's a time when you're slurring it, like if you mix it with the cyanide solution as you're pouring it into the containment, you could run it over a sluice that's specifically designed to recover fine gold. And anything that you can recover in that sluice, you would not get with the leaching. So it's just pure profit. And the effort involved, depending upon how you're loading your vats, might be quite modest. I mean, there's almost nothing. If you're mixing it with the solution and then running it into the vat, it would be easy to run it over a sluice when you do that. Were you able to hear that clearly? I'm not sure where you were at, but I'm not surprised that the net is not perfect. Let's see. Hey, Chris, what are you talking about? 6 inches of conveyor belt works well for mill use. I mean, to catch the coarser gold? Miracle mat, yeah, that might work well. Yeah, that the mercury plate was to catch the big stuff. Yep. Yeah, Aries, that's one of the gaps we're trying to fill here. for hard rock mining is, you know, for the small scale micro miner, there's not much in the way of resources out there. So I'm trying to invent stuff where there's gaps, such as a concentrator that can do a good job. I mean, with Ryan's hard rock ore, I'm getting almost 80% recovery. That's pretty good. Now, Montana B, I'm getting 10 to 20% recovery, and that sucks. By conveyor belt, I mean you're just talking slick conveyor belt, correct, Chris? Yeah, I think Miracle Map might work. I know my contact in Tanzania said just miner's moss was like a miracle improvement to their sluicing for the hard rock that they're textured, huh? Okay. Well, that would make, I was wondering, slick would be a little bit much. Who makes textured conveyor belt? What kind? Is it ridged? Something like that? Either ribbed or diamond. Okay. Yeah. Say Miracle Map might work. To say just, say in Zimbabwe, my contact said that, what was it? Miner's moss improved recovery 20%. It might be now. Back when I was doing it, the big ones didn't seem to have a whole lot of texture on them. It would make sense, but I say that may be relatively new tech in big mining. I'm not sure. I say because the stuff I'm used to is 2 foot, 3 foot wide sort of stuff. So Nikunj, were you able to hear my advice? Let me put a comment here. Excuse me. Nikunj could man understand what I said about a sluice before leaching. Yeah, sometimes communications can be difficult. Yeah, commercial and food handling belt. Yeah. Well, you could recover the heavies on the sluice smoking that's coarse. Then the fines you'd have to use another methodology. Depends on how fine they are, as to what methodology works. Again, you know, there is no magic answer that works every time. Let's say what I'm working on, my concentrator works fine on Ryan's ore, but not worth a crap on Montana B, and that may just require leaching. I mean, it seems to be really difficult stuff, and that does happen. I lost my train of thought, darn it. You just have to test what works on your stuff. But yeah, sometimes leaching is the only way to go. If it's really, really fine, it'll work well. And nothing else will. Yeah, using a radial arm to cut notches in it should work. Yeah, it's pretty much it, smoking joking. I mean, unless you're a real expert and you have a lot of analysis on the ore itself, where you can say, okay, this is such and such an ore, the particle sizes are such, and they're in this mineral and blah, 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 which big mining companies do, but nobody else does because they can't afford it. Just test it. Just try different things. As a general rule, if you can hand pan it, you can probably work a gravity extraction of some sort, but not all of them. That's what I'm basically trying to do, is to do something that if you can hand pan it, you can recover it with my concentrator and go from there. If you've got a real chemically refractory ore where it's like bound up in sulfides or stuff, then you usually have to just concentrate the heavy minerals and then get intense. Oh yeah, Chris, they always test. Over in Goldfields, they spent $8 million on testing, including they drove a decline down into the ore body. I think it was about 1,000-foot decline, so that they could get, hundreds of tons of sample material to do the test leaching and everything else, because they didn't want to spend, $250 million and it didn't work. Yeah, it could, Chris. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. We did do confirmation assays, though, so theoretically, it's legit. I mean, 3 different labs came up with the same result. That's pretty good. So the gold's there. It's just a matter of figuring out how to extract it, and even then, the question is how much ore body is left in the ground, because a lot of the workings apparently were mined out to the extent of the higher grade material. And say that we may need to do more exploration before we do much else. There's also a new mill in the area that was just being commissioned when I left that may do custom milling at a reasonable price. If they can get a reasonable recovery for a reasonable price, it may be simpler just to haul the dumps to them and just sell it, essentially, have them custom mill it. That might be the most effective way of doing it. There's some stuff closer to Helena that we looked at, but some assays came back pretty good, and that might work well there. I mean, one dump, limited sampling, but the sample came back over an ounce to the ton, and that was, 500 to 1,000 ton dump. So, that might work really well. I mean, you're shipping it less than 50 miles. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll say, even then, you're going to run out of pickup truck loads fairly quickly. When you're talking in the neighborhood of tens of tons, you only got a month or two of haulage, and then you're out of material. So we really want to see if we can find some more ore there too. One would think that, there's stuff there. That hill has a bunch of holes in it, and one would think they didn't do that just for the exercise. But we shall see what we shall see. I can't get there right now, and geophysical techniques, drilling, and just surface exploration. One would think that the old timers spent a good deal of time examining surface strike, but they might have missed something. It couldn't hurt to do a thorough examination of the surface strike and maybe channeling, just trenching down the hills, cross-sectioning stuff to see if we can't intercept something. Oh, Cherokee, you missed all kinds of things. We had a wild party. We had chemicals
Hi,
and
Cherokee.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they were doing science stuff. Dude, you missed the science stuff. Total bummer.
The nice thing is that she can replay it tomorrow. So, yeah. You have complete maps of that property? No. Don't have any previous geological mapping or information of any kind whatsoever. It'd be easy. It's reasonable terrain to hike over. It's not real bad, but it's not flat. It's fairly steep. Yeah. How's it going, Cherokee? Oh, Eva would love to mine in Montana. Absolutely, especially in the summertime. Now, wintertime, you can't mine in Montana, but I'm not a huge fan of the concept of staying in Montana in the wintertime either. So I'm flexible, but the option would be mine in Montana until your processed water starts freezing up, and then go further south where your processed water is still in its liquid form. Well, Cherokee, you just got to be here at 6. Okay. Now, couple of things you missed, so I'll update you here. First of all, the miner bago is apparently working fine right now, so we got that going again. Tomorrow I start working selling Christmas trees. That's going to be 7 days a week. So I may not have any more live streams for about 3 weeks. We're working on, the concept of maybe Eva's got a tablet. We might be able to live stream off of that or something. And go from there. Let's see. And those are probably the ones that you're most interested in, Cherokee. And yeah, Chris, I think some geophysical exploration might be really useful too. The structures are tipped at about a 60-degree angle, and one side of the hill is roughly parallel to the laminations, and the other side is roughly perpendicular to lamination. So you should be able to access a lot of information on the side of the hill that's cross-cutting all of the structure. That might be pretty good. As far as I know, it's working fine. We just took it for a test run down to Green Valley today, Cherokee. I've been driving around town for a day or two, working out any kinks, any issues. For example, the head temperature gauge doesn't like to work when I first start it, but I have a coolant temperature gauge anyhow, so that's not a problem. And we ran it down to Green Valley to make sure it doesn't overheat or get hotter than it should while driving at freeway speeds for extended periods of time. It seemed to work fine. Yeah, Chris, that's my thought. Is geophysical might do a really good job of finding things that are readily accessible. I'm thinking running parallel lines on the side of the hill where you got the structure is basically outcropping like this on the side of the hill. So that as you run your lines, if you see anything, it's right there outcropping. If you go on the other side of the hill, or here's the side of the hill and here's your structures, whatever structure you got, if it isn't real close to surface, it's going to be damned hard to get to and expensive. So Yeah, Old Med probably does. I know Zong Engineering does. I got more stuff to check. I probably should ask Old Med about that in a future live stream to get a better idea. And Jimmy, are you prospecting there so you can mine or so the mine owner can mine it? If we find something, the mine owner would probably use me to mine it initially. I mean, that's one of the major possibilities. We'll just have to see. I'm prospecting there because I'm getting paid to look and we enjoy doing it. So it works out fine. Yeah, Chris, I understand, but I'll say the actual details of geophysics is not my forte. So I'd need to talk to, I'd say Old Med would probably be a good idea. Basically, the Old Med, the ore zones seem to have very high iron concentrations. One was 27%, one was like 34% iron. So geomagnetics ought to work. I'm not sure about IP, but we're looking at some of the structures are perpendicular veins that outcrop, over long distances. The others are lying in the sedimentary formations. Basically, it's a hard quartzite, and it's between them. That was the higher grade material, but it's immediately adjacent to this vertical structure. And there's other places where it looks like they were chasing horizontal next to vertical, but there's places where it's clear that there's this iron rich material that doesn't have super high grade. So I'm not sure what we can do. Smoking joking, what's a typical cut for owner and miner? Depends on the owner, depends on the miner, depends on the situation, and how much is the miner supplying in terms of equipment, capital, things like that. If the mine owner is simply providing the claim and the miner is doing all the work, providing all the money, all the technical expertise, all that stuff, all the labor, then the mine owner would typically be getting something 20% on down, depending on the size of the project and et cetera. A big mining company is going to, pay you, 1% would be really good. An intermediate size mining company might pay you up to 5%. Small mining, 10%. If it's rich enough and this and that, maybe more than that. If you're sharing expenses, equipment, resources, labor, things like that, then things can get kind of complicated to figure out what's a reasonable percentage. And also things like, suppose I spend 2 years getting it to routine operation, and then I go somewhere else. What kind of residual do I get? That would be a different situation. So far, I haven't seen anything that looks like it's going to last for years, but these things happen. It's possible, Chris, but seismic, I think, is be pretty expensive. I modeled a company called Ground Truth for mapping technology. Well, Old Med, if you had, say, 2,000 feet by 1,000 feet to map for looking near surface anomalies, the real high iron stuff like that, because we don't have the money to go real deep looking for something in general. You have to be close enough to at least pop a drill hole in from surface and not dig more than 50 or 100 feet to get to it, probably. How much would that cost roughly, and what would be the methodology that would be most likely to yield the information we need? Yeah, it can get complicated, Lars. It's not traversable by vehicle, if that's what you mean, Chris. Yeah, it's definitely too steep for vehicular access. Are you able to, Ultimate, are you able to do fairly high resolution? I mean, we're looking for fairly small anomalies here in the neighborhood of, 50 feet by 50 feet. That's the main ore zone there. And so that's that's a question as to what kind of resolution you could get. I don't know. By foot, yeah, it's pretty much 100% traversable. You might have to deviate a little bit due to, little sheer rock faces and stuff, but not much. 4 centimeters? Holy crap! That's amazing. The tech has really improved. 4 centimeter resolution? Now, would that be like a geomagnetic study or what, Old Med? Yeah, but Resort Dog, what he's saying is if you're taking an instrument across the terrain that's reading underneath the ground, you want to try and keep your lines straight and things like that. You don't want to do a lot of zigzagging and this and that if you can avoid it. Yeah, I mean, if he's just like LiDAR mapping, yeah, that would make sense. I'm talking about subsurface geophysical mapping. Oh, yeah, yeah, exactly, Resorta. We're talking about looking beneath the surface using remote sensing type equipment, such as the magnetic field of the earth and how it's modified by the subsurface minerals. An IP is where you actually induce a current into the ground and see how the ground modifies the current flows. There's all kinds of fancy trick stuff they can do now, guys. Well, if you're using ground penetrating radar, Old Med, what's the depth that it could operate to? Last I heard, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 feet. Not sure. Oh, I'm getting sleepy. Oh, I'm gonna have to get to sleep here in the next. Well, I'm gonna have to hang up in the next half hour or so. Depth is infrared. Yeah, but I mean, each instrument has its, normal depth of resolution. I mean, if you're looking for high iron mineral zones and low iron country rock, then, typically you say, well, we can see that at about this range. Yeah, it'd be nice, Lars. But yeah, that's the question, Old Matt, is what would be the most efficient way to look for those structures? I say because GPR might be the best way since we can't really go deep anyway. We wouldn't have the money for that. But what we'd like to do is cover the area, as much area for as little cost as possible. No, there's no bedrock in placer here. I mean, it's basically rock under inches of decomposed rock type soil. Yeah, the ridge is just, it's rock with, soil. That's it. So you'd be looking right through the rock. I believe that most of the high grade ore that they discovered was mined essentially to its extents in that mine. There's one area there, what we call Pack Rat Penthouse. It's still got apparently some high grade ore left, but removing it can create some ground control issues. So, I mean, nothing that I think is, that you couldn't deal with, but you'd have to deal with it. Aside from that, yeah, I mean, they pretty much, all the stoping basically goes to crap. There's all that stuff there appears to be just crap. They mined that out. And so that's my assumption. Most of this was mined out. Yes. What's the deepest the workings reach? About 120 feet slant distance from surface along a 60-degree decline. Yeah, it's going to be hard to get a drill up on top of this, and that's kind of an expensive way to look for stuff just wildcatting. We could maybe use like a Shaw backpack drill or something and select the structure. Okay, where beneath this was where we found it before, so let's punch holes through this one right here and see what we find out. But we can probably do that by simply going to the surface outcropping of those structures and just uncovering it and looking. It's like, okay, here's the hanging wall layer of quartzite, and here's the black vein beneath it, and here beneath the black vein should be where the mineralization is, and see if we can find anything. But I say I just don't know. That's why I was thinking something like an IP study or a backpack magnetometer study, something like that might be able to do a good job of figuring out what's close to the surface. Hello, Chong's Corner. Hello to the Philippines. Quarter mile for electrode spacing. Yeah, that wouldn't take too many electrodes to do that. We could probably, 6 to 12 electrodes would cover a huge amount of area. Do you have any specific question, Chong's Corner? We're one of the things we do here is we have a bunch of people that know a lot of stuff. So if you have a particular question, you can ask it, and we'll see if somebody knows the answer.
Dang, the judge just reversed himself again, apparently.
Okay, Jimmy, for small scale mining, first of all, my assumption is if you don't make at least $200 a day, you could probably do it easier working at Circle K or something. So my general principle is $200 a day per person profit. To achieve that, if you have a reasonably easy to dig rock and a reasonably simple to process rock, then I'll get to you in a minute, Chong. My general rule of thumb is 1 ounce per ton, 1 foot wide, or a 1/2 ounce per ton, 2 feet wide. You should be able to make that work if the digging's not too difficult, if the ground control's not too difficult, and if the extraction technique is not too difficult, i.e. you could dig the rock, crush and pulverize, and gravity extract the gold. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. Now, if you've got a large amount of dumps that are sitting there running half an ounce to the ton, well, you don't have mining costs. So, your economies change. If you go to hardrocku.com, I have a mining cost economics estimator on there, where you can basically plug in the numbers and it'll give you the answers. You tell what the size of the ore body is, the length, the width, the depth, your cost of processing, your efficiency of processing, and things like that. The ore grade, the price of gold. You input those variables, it crunches the numbers and gives you an estimate. So it's very, very helpful in that application. So I suggest if you're really interested in that question, go to that calculator and just play games, play what if games, and it'll give you a much better idea than just a quick answer on my part will. But I say the rough rule of thumb, 1 ounce, 1 foot wide, if it's easy, simple mining and simple extraction. Okay. And Chong's Corner. Is quartz really an indicator for gold deposit? First of all, it depends on whether you're talking gold in rock or gold in sand and gravel. If it's gold in sand and gravel, quartz nearby probably has almost no effect on that because it's coming from a long distance in general. However, if you're looking for quartz in the rock itself, what we call hard rock gold, or lode gold, then it is almost always associated with quartz to some extent. But it's not the quartz itself that's critical. It's what's also with the quartz is to tell you whether or not there's likelihood of gold. In the Philippines, you have lots of rain, so you will tend to, near the surface, get lots of weathering, and the minerals associated with the gold are generally iron pyrite, which is iron sulfide, or other sulfide minerals. Most of the other sulfide minerals, when they oxidize, they can be leached downwards. But the iron sulfide, when it gets oxidized, turns to iron oxide. So you're looking for quartz that used to have iron sulfide in it as a general rule, or some other sulfide. And so you're looking generally for iron stained quartz. It looks rusty colored. It's red, it's brown. It'll have little square holes in it. I have a rock here somewhere. Where did it go? There we go. Okay. Damn, that light is intense. That's a little better. This is quartz, but you see the little holes in it? Those are where the iron sulfide used to be. And as such, it has weathered out and dissolved and left holes. And it will also tend to leave the gold behind if it had some in it. So it's this kind of material that you tend to be looking for. And yes, Chong's Corner, yeah, pretty much everything's red around there. But is the quartz, are the quartz veins red? Do they have these little square holes in them? And are they crumbly? Are they broken up and rotting? Because the quartz doesn't crumble. It's the stuff that was also there that goes away that makes it soft and easily broken. But that's the kind of quartz you're looking for in general. Now, it can be a lot more holes than this. Absolutely. This just makes it easy to see. But that's the kind of quartz you're looking for. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, I have some videos on how to hand pan microfine gold. If you have an American style gold pan, this technique works. I don't know if you can do it with a Batea pan or not, or something similar. But I can recover gold that's very, very small in very small quantities. So I can take the rock and crush it up and hand pan it and tell fairly reliably whether or not it has gold in sufficient quantity to make it valuable. And that is a very, very useful and inexpensive technique to explore for gold. You'll have to look back through my videos, and it was sometime in 2019, I think I did the last one on hand panning microfine gold, where I went through the whole process. One of my very earliest videos, I think it was like 4, was on hand panning, but I've improved the technique a lot since then, made it simpler and easier. But in your situation, I would definitely want to look at those videos. And I don't know how easy it would be to get an American style gold pan, but if you can, it would be a technique that would allow you to analyze the rock very quickly and cheaply. It takes about 5 minutes once you have the rock crushed. And it doesn't cost anything except your time. So in your situation, it would be an extremely valuable tool to help you with locating the rock that has gold in it. It's also very helpful when you are trying to extract the gold from the rock in terms of testing to see how well your process is working, how much you're losing, how much you're catching. Things like that are pretty easy to test if the gold is coarse enough to show up in the pan. Now, some gold is so fine it won't even do that. But I can recover gold down to 1/1000th of an inch, 35 microns, or 600 mesh, depending upon how you want to measure it, which is something that, it's pretty fine gold, much finer than you're ever going to find in sand and gravel. So I say it works well for that. Now, coarser gold, it will not work well for, because it tends to go someplace else in the pan. You'll keep it in the pan, but the last little bit, when you're looking to see the gold, it'll go where the light materials go, leaving the really fine stuff up where you can see them. Okay. So I say it's a very, very helpful technique, especially in a low-tech situation. Assays in the United States, right here we pay $45 for a laboratory analysis called an assay that tells us how much gold is in the rock. $45 for each sample. And in the Philippines, that would be extremely expensive. And I don't know how long it would take you to get your answers back. Here it takes anywhere from 1 week to 1 month. Let's say if you can hand pan, you can do it in a matter of minutes for no cost at all. And so say if you're interested, I would really suggest you look at that. Hand panning microfine gold 2019. That's a very, very useful video. I'm going to try something, Chong's Corner. I've never done this before. I'm going to see about coming up to another window. And I don't know if you can hear me. Eva, can you monitor my channel here? Turn the sound on.
Sound on.
Okay. So I'm going to clip another window here and see if you can still hear me. Can you still hear me? Hello? Are we still?
Yes.
Okay, so good. I'm on another window. I'm going to look through my videos and I'm going to go to that
I
video.
can still hear you.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that right now. I'm on another window and I'm going to look through my videos. I will get the link to the video I'm talking about and post it. There it is right there. So I'm going to click this. There's the link. Link to the video I'm talking about. Okay, now I'm coming over here. There it is right there. And Control D. And there we go. So there's the link, Chong's Corner right there. Enter. Okay. So and there we go. So there's the link. See if you can watch that, and that will tell you how to do the hand panning. You can turn the sound down now, little one. See if you can. Okay. So that is the link to the hand panning microfine gold 2019 that shows you how to do it, and you can actually see how fine the gold is. That particular sample was running about 1/3 of an ounce to the ton, I believe, but I'm not sure. You'd have to listen to the video. But that's, you know, the kind of ore we need here in the States is kind of the least that we can make money off of on a small scale. And if you could let me know that you got that, Chong's Corner, I'd appreciate it. To see, I think I've never done that before, but it seemed like good. Very well, Chong. I'm glad I can help. I use this literally all the time. I can't tell you how much I use it. It's not 100% reliable in terms of you can have a situation where all the gold is not showing up in the pan, but it will give you a minimum. Now, if it's showing up the pan, you've got at least that much gold. And in a situation where you're trying to recover it using low-tech techniques like sluicing or something like that, if you can't see it in the pan, you're not going to get it. Okay, now that doesn't mean there's not a lot more gold, but you would have to use something like leaching or something more complicated to recover it. So I say, if you can see it in the pan, you can hopefully recover it fairly simply and cheaply. And you can do that very easily. It may be difficult to get an American style gold pan. I don't know how easy that will be. The particular ones I use are only $5 each, and I get them on Amazon. But I don't know what something like that would cost, or how long it would take to get it to the Philippines. But over here, they're quite cheap and easy to get. Oh, let's see. What time is it? It's about time to call it a night fairly soon here.
More
Does-
news out of Georgia.
Does anyone have any questions? And does anyone need to just keep chatting to each other here before I shut it down? Waiting for responses. It's been another fun night. I think a lot got done tonight. And say this is working out well. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm learning too. So I mean, especially it's kind of gratifying. People like Chong's Corner there. Joachim, thank you. Yeah, they brought back the Hilti and the shovel, but they forgot the digging bar and the extension cord. They'll bring them back tomorrow or the next day. No problem. Don't worry, I'll get a live stream up again as soon as I can manage it. But day after Christmas is pretty much guaranteed, and then come the new year, it should be pretty easy. And thank you, everyone.
And if anybody notices ads on our videos, let us know.
Okay. And as I was saying, it's really nice to, someone like Chong's Corner. The information might be very, very important to them in terms of just earning a living. And over there, that means feeding your family. It's not like over here where you have the kind of
Lars
safety
has another
nets.
question for you.
There is a small scale leaching system available for purchase that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of how well it works. The company was Bahamian Refining Company. I think they called it BioD Leachant. I suspect it's a thiourea-based leach. Let me just double check to make sure that I presume it's still refining gold. Okay. That Google search didn't work. Let me try another one real quick. Let's see. Somebody saying they had a good result with BioD. There's a patent search on it. BioD Leach. Company in Arizona, yeah, for 1,3-dibromo 5,5-dimethyl dantoin, which is a bromine oxidizer. Process is tricky in both pH control and ORP. I guess it means oxidation and reduction potential can vary between batches. The resulting solution can be further stripped with dibutyl carbitol. Selected gold collector. Great Lakes Chemical owns the patent. Anyhow, do a Google search for bio D-leach, and that should start you on an information trail. I used to see it in the California Mining Journal from Bahamian Remining Company. Okay. No, I have not, Cherokee. And when you say it from the muck, I presume you mean the gold. If you're using just muriatic acid, I don't think that would work, but if you add an oxidizer to it, it probably would. Apparently, Chris Georgie is familiar with it. What's new? I think the metabisulfite precipitates it, doesn't it? It turns it back into a solid. Wait, Cherokee. Chris will have the answer. You're welcome, Lars. Again, I'm not sure how well it worked or this or that, but let's say you can find information on it by going to BioD-Leach on Google and then just start tracking stuff down from there. Yeah, that's what I thought. Makes it back to metallic gold. I think you have to change the acid a little bit before you do that. Any other questions here before we call it a night? Bye, Cherokee. You have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything new. Chris says, good night, Eva. Yeah, the girl always shows up the ugly dude. What can I say? You're welcome, winging it. Night, Cherokee. Night, Alt Med. Thanks for the input. Night, Aries. Okay. That gasoline works fine. Parts cleaner. Whatever. Now, my question, Chris, is where do you think I'm going to find pine needles? Besides, I mean, I'll have pine trees, but I suppose I'll probably have enough I could do that. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Don't see anything new. You take care, all. Bye-bye.